Hey, there we go. Good evening, everybody. We are live with Stellaris. Okay. I started the wheels turning at 7 o'clock, but it looks like it's 7:10. But I'm definitely a little more close to sort of the stated start time. And I'm going to do my best in the future to be a little stricter with myself in terms of getting things started. I do like the fact that there's a bit of a window, especially given the fact that streams will also potentially go a bit later, just in terms of duration. But I also, so one motivator for me is that I still need to record an Elder Scrolls episode, and the amount of time that I have available to me to one, record it, and two, upload it, and then on top of that be able to account for the processing time that Twitch and YouTube will need to make that available. That window is closing very quickly. So that was partially the motivator, and then of course I also really like playing Stellaris, and I felt rather bad that I wasn't able to do this last week. For those of you who are wondering what happened to the Stellaris stream, I made a mistake in terms of setting up the Elder Scrolls Daggerfall premiere. Normally those are Tuesdays at 7 o'clock, but this particular time, I missed one day, basically. I set it for 7 o'clock on, excuse me, on the Monday, and quite literally, I went to go hit the start stream button, and I get this, not able to connect to this, the server thing, and I check my dashboard, and I find out that I'm streaming, and I'm like, oh god, did somebody, take my Twitch key? But it turns out that if you are doing a video premiere, so far as I can tell, there is not a way to stop that. So in this case, you all got to see the Daggerfall episode a day early, and unfortunately, I was not able to do a Stellaris round. So I'm due back for that. Paradox was also good enough to give me a copy of Holy Fury, which I do want to kind of continue on with. What I might wind up doing, I'm really I've got my back against the wall as far as timing is concerned. So this will be just a little bit of housekeeping at the start. It'd be nice to get a bit of a pulse inside of chat, and although I know it makes things a little tedious for the YouTube video, so I'll try not to be too wordy. But yeah, the basic rotation right now is going to be, Paradox Grand Strategy on Mondays as usual. Wednesday we're still doing Cultist Simulator, and of course we're due out for a patch for Cultist Simulator. So I'm thinking about how I'm going to be handling that. But that's my Wednesday, and of course on Fridays we are doing a fairly regular Mass Effect game. Now we've finished Battlefield. But on top of all of that, Tuesdays are now dedicated to Elder Scrolls, and Thursday, when I can, is sort of these more relaxing, I don't like using the term ASMR, but it's certainly more geared towards that crowd. One of those. And so really, especially given the fact that normally I record at least one of those videos on the weekend, I'm just simply running out of days in which to do that. So I've tried alternating between Stellaris and Crusader Kings, and I wasn't entirely happy with the way that it went, because in the end I wound up forgetting everything in both games. So what I might do is I might just sort of push in on one, and then see if there's maybe VODs that I can do for Crusader Kings, or alternatively finish the Stellaris game and then hop back into Holy Fury, because they're both wonderful, but I think the audience has sort of spoken in terms of what they prefer, and that is a little unfortunate. Not so much the fact that people have the preference for Stellaris, because I think it's a wonderful game to get people into Paradox games, but I do know that there's a very dedicated group of people who like Crusader Kings but don't always get a chance to watch it. So I'm going to try and see if I can come up with a better balance. So I'm going to need a little bit of time to revisit where we were a couple weeks ago. Back when it was 2018, when we weren't living in Blade Runner times. and let's see what we're dealing with. So effectively, I have completely ignored Empire Sprawl. I'm going to need to figure that out. The biggest concern that I have is actually for the technology cost. But I'm sort of trying to justify the sprawl by going for areas that are a little bit richer in terms of technology. So gobbling these up. We did unfortunately lose a science ship, but we've rebuilt it. And regrettably, it was the Foundling, so the one for the Horizon signal. But you know, you can't choose what happens. So in this case, I'm going to justify some of this expansion here. We'll get our social research. We'll get, basically, we'll have everything. The only real drawback, of course, is this little corner here. It's sort of hard to justify the expansion for any reason other than, grabbing resources. I know they've got a little physics here, and obviously 5 energy is kind of a sweet deal. And at this point, it might just simply be so I can grab some more planets, get a larger, just more bodies essentially to do the, to do all the hard work. And then I had a wonderful revelation, which was the fact that so far as Axis is concerned, I originally thought that this system linked into my rivals, but as it happens, we can lock this off for ourselves. There's a very nice little Gaia world here, so I definitely want to get some bodies there. It is, if there is going to be a war, it's almost certainly going to be with these guys, so I kind of want to make sure that I'm keeping myself sort of at my military capacity. The one real drawback here, though, is that I am kind of tapped out in terms of my existing resources. I'm clearly going to have to build at least one star base to sort of keep these guys at bay. The real question is, do I go aggressive and put something right up to their border, or do I sort of accept that there'll be, this is kind of a nice place to have. Of course, I'm feeling very bold. I can, move in and have lots of different entry points to their territory, but I'm not entirely sure I want to do that yet. So this is my main military concern. It'd be nice to have the Riddigus system, but I'm not an idiot. These guys are militant isolationists. If I put anything on that border, I'm going to lose it. We've got a Leviathan here. We're not ready to take on the Aether Drake. And then, of course, the other thing that I need to harden up for is the potential for a rather nasty individual to pop up. Sorry, I just need to tab out for a quick second. There's the potential of a rather nasty little fella who can pop up after a certain period of time. The Great Khan, who we dealt with last time, but of course last time the rules were totally different. So I'm not convinced that I'm going to be able to take on the Great Khan with the changes in Megacorp. So I think the next little bit is going to be, so I was talking last stream about expansion. We're definitely going to lock in what we can here. And I think what I might even do in order to try and at least pay lip service to the Empire Sprawl penalties, what I might do is I might only expand out to these two systems in order to, to capture their science resources, and then maybe later take the planets. But if I'm completely honest, there is a pretty strong I have a pretty strong inclination to develop these worlds so that I basically have more hands building more things. My view on Empire Sprawl at the moment, this may not be right, is that this forces you, so to my mind, it is not a very effective deterrent for me blobbing out. But it does make sure that when I'm seizing territory that I do so with a mind to how I'm going to be overcoming that penalty. So probably the one that I'm most concerned about here is the technology cost. I don't want to become massive and then lose a technological edge. So the idea here is that with that 26% penalty to the technology cost, I want to make sure that when I expand, that I'm able to expand in areas that will offset the added penalty to my technology. And I mean, it is worth mentioning, if I take a look at sort of neighbors, I'm not actually more advanced than anybody here. So it's quite possible that I'm going to be falling behind because I got too big, but we'll see how it goes. I've got my branch offices. Unfortunately, we don't have, the people I've opened the branches with aren't growing very quickly. So, and the marauders are not particularly inclined to give me trade deals. So I think probably the form that my expansion will take will be to lock in what I can in this area here. You'll notice everything except this one planet gives me science resources, so that's exactly what I'm looking for. Very high priority to build up capacity in these systems. And then I also I'm going to do a quick audit of my existing planets. But I'll save that for a little bit later. Looks like we're already on our way to building. We're building the mining station, but we're on our way to expanding out to the science, so that's good. This guy is building a starbase, so we're happy there. And I don't really think I'd love to come up with some other justification for for building things. There's a small argument for hydroponics bay. Because that'll help me with some of my food shortages. Actually, the hydroponics bay is quite a bit better now because it frees up. So what I could wind up doing with hydroponics bays is I can switch out my investment in agriculture districts, and instead I can build out mining or generators. Particularly generators are nice because energy lets you buy anything. But for the time being, I think I'm going to refrain from it, because the only real drawback, and I think this is an appropriate offset, to build any of these expansions, of course, you are paying alloys, and alloys are used to upgrade your ships and whatnot. So, but for all my babbling, I think we're just ready to unpause, and I'll take a look at how this is all built up. So we've got 6 jobs which can be filled, and we're assembling robots and whatnot. We're generally in good shape there. On YAML, we are blocked out, and that's because we don't have the capacity to remove the impassable mountains or the active volcano yet. We are on our way to building hollow theaters. That was, so I can get amenities, and we're building drones on this planet. So good news there. And then Gaul is our new. Right, that's our new one in the Rhizome capital system. And this one is not generating robots, but I believe I have been transferring robots into that area. Size 25 Gaia worlds, nice. Okay, so Python Prime, building robots. I think this one there were. I think there might have been problems with jobs. Well, if there were problems with jobs, I certainly don't have them now. All right. Oh, we lost another one. Admiral Basil Light has died at the age of 83. Now, as it is, I'm not too worried about that because my fleet capacity, I sort of outstripped my resources, so I'm okay. And of course, I'm paying a fairly substantial penalty for admirals at the moment because of the Empire sprawl. All right, where were we? So Python, I'm happy with. I've got a lot of space, and it looks like we will have quite a few. We'll have quite a few drones to work with it. We've detected life signs coming from somewhere beneath the barren and lifeless surface of the planet. What manner of organism could possibly live there? It'll give us a delay for getting that Gaia world, but again, delays are not terrible because we're building up mining and technological capabilities. Also, I don't know. We've not finished the collection mission yet. Akram, what were we doing with Akram? we're clearing everything out. Obviously, lots of room for settlement. I also want to take a quick peek at migration because we are getting it's a little bit to our advantage where Hythians are actually coming into our territory. We opened a migration treaty with them. And it looks like we're attractive enough that everybody... Ooh, the only place... So it looks like Yamal Prime is not attractive. Well, let's change that. Luxury goods. Yes, I can afford it. I mean, it's not great because I'm not generating a lot of them, but we'll do the best that we can. Some kind of burrowing silicon life form inhabits a vast network of tunnels beneath the barren surface of Halvam 3. As best as we can tell, the creatures feed off rocks, and there is evidence to suggest that they possess a rudimentary form of intelligence. Their tunneling efforts have shoveled large amounts of valuable minerals to the surface. Intriguing. And that's in the system with the Gaia world. Now, obviously, the minerals don't quite mean what they used to. Okay, we've still only pushed this away a bit, so... Immigration push, newly founded colonies.
Upscaling complete.
Yeah, it's a bit of a bummer. But it's because I founded so many different colonies, it also makes sense. Okay, let's close the branch offices for now. This construction ship's sitting idle, so I think I'll just go mining and research in both cases. Hello, the Eyes of Sin. You'll be listening from your phone as you are off to pick up dinner, but you wanted to say hi. Thank you very much for doing so. I know there's bodies inside the chat, but it's always nice, even if somebody's not able to stick around, it's nice to hear a quick hello, just letting me know that you're around. So thank you, Sin. I hope you have a wonderful dinner. What are you planning on having if you're still around? And I hope when you are back and can lock yourself in that I get to see you in chat. All right, what do we build? Same idea here, just building out. In this case, I'm going for the mining first just because obviously I'm generating a ton of energy as it is. But I just kind of like the idea of being able to make even more of these resources if I can. Picking up an oven bake ready mean chicken Alfredo. Ooh. Sounds good. I hope you have a good one. And I don't know if it's as cold there as it is here, but stay warm. All right. So one nice thing about this is okay, so I haven't done this before. I don't even know if this was an option before, but I went for crystalline pacification, and there's two reasons for that. Number one, it gives me access to the Gaia world a little bit earlier.
Research actualized.
Gravic sensors. These sensors have been turned to look for any gravitational changes in space, such as those produced by the presence of a starship. So we can go for drone lasers, we can go for bonuses to physics, we can... I think the 10% bonus to research stations is the right call here. How much are we generating again? It doesn't even matter. One of the small moonlets orbiting this gas giant has been identified as a promising mining site. A more thorough survey will have to be conducted to determine whether a mining operation would be feasible or not. Go for it. Also, it lines up with his ability, so... Okay, what are we going to pay here? 484. It's sort of worth it, but the challenge here is that I'm going to be expanding out to quite a few different systems. So I don't actually want to just sink those alloys directly into upgrading the fleet. I want to make sure that I have enough in reserve to be able to expand out to these areas, because of course that's going to be how I maintain my not even my technological edge, that's how I stay in the game technology-wise. But yeah, so the reason why I was pretty comfortable going for crystalline pacification if my fleet strength is equivalent with this guy, I'm sitting at about 3K. Well, that's one of the clusters here, 2.5, and then there's a 1.8 nearby. So essentially, if he wants to cause any trouble, he's going to have to come through a reasonably strong hostile presence. Now, of course, he might respect the crystalline entities. By the way, Omni's Eye, I'm sorry, I did not see your message earlier. Thank you, thank you for stopping by. I am sorry I did not respond. And K5, I see your sub. What I don't see is the alerts. Let me try and bring that up again. No recent events. I don't believe you. Is Streamlabs down? It keeps going off during my my efforts to it keeps going off during my attempts to do relaxation streams. Just bear with me one quick second here. I want to make sure that I haven't done something. Odd. Okay. I'm sorry, K5. Thank you very much for 1/4 of subscription. I feel like it's been longer. But you've made me whole. I've got a steady downturn in terms of subscribers, but I am back to where I started in the month, so thank you very much for that. I apologize for not having an active, sort of an active alert or anything like that, but let me at least shout you out. For those of you who don't know him, K5 is one of the people I've actually had the pleasure of playing of sort of live Stellaris with. He's been incredibly supportive of the stream. He's somebody who has used the emotes to great effect, and I love seeing those emotes being used because I know Eyes of Sin put a lot of effort towards them, and I personally like them a lot. So obviously the fact that people are using them makes me happy. But if you guys do like, especially if you guys like a more relaxed pace, or if you guys have a bit of a love for especially science fiction, I think K5 really is your man. He's not exclusively a sci-fi streamer. In fact, I feel like the last thing I saw him play was Skyrim, but I think that's more of a statement in terms of how long it's been since I've had a chance to watch one of his streams. But I know him particularly for Elite Dangerous as well as No Man's Sky. And one of the other things I'd like to point out is that I remember and wound up buying a copy of not Roller Coaster Tycoon, but Planet Coaster as a result of one of his streams. So he's done a really wonderful job of sort of showing me a few games, which it's kind of hard to say that people don't know about Planet Coaster. Like it's kind of a known quantity, right? But to actually see him do it, I'm actually pretty bad at it. I really can't make any sense of the first level, although admittedly I only put about 15 seconds towards it and then I had to run off and do something else. But that's a couple of recommendations that I can make here. It's not just that I think K5 will stream stuff that I think an audience who likes Stellaris will like. Obviously he does do Stellaris himself, but I think he does a particularly good job of showing you why things that are sort of adjacent to these types of games, but are not necessarily obvious choices. So I don't think anybody sits down and says, oh, you like Stellaris? You'll love Planet Coaster. I think K5 does this really necessary role that some streamers are very good at. I don't think I am. But essentially sort of showing an audience who likes, so like one of the reasons somebody would like Stellaris is for all the stuff that got added in the new patch. All of the, all of the management in terms of the populations and the resources and such. And so I think K5 sort of shows an audience who might be already predisposed towards those kinds of mechanics a set of games that might not necessarily be on their radar. In addition to the fact that he's just a really nice and supportive guy. So I hope some of you, if you've not checked him out, definitely give him a shot. A more detailed scan of one of the many natural satellites orbiting the gas giant Halvam 7 have revealed a deposit of precious metals and minerals that was overlooked in the initial survey. Although the moon is very small, it has a stable orbit around its primary and appears tectonically stable. An excellent find. So, we've got some unemployment. I hope it's a robot that's unemployed. Yep. So, and unfortunately, we don't really have a lot that we can do with this robot. Obviously, if I felt like it, I could try and, I can try and maybe work these things around, take down a generator district and open up an agriculture district instead. But realistically, what I want to be doing here is I want to take this opportunity of unemployment and turn it into, or I want to take this sort of negative of unemployment and turn it into, oh, okay, it's a drone, so it's not going to be like, it's not going to turn into a criminal or something. So in this particular case, what I'm just going to do is I'm going to ship it off to a system that needs it. Now we've got Gaul, which is a colony. Unfortunately, well, no, we've got a farm. Actually, we do need people to work the farm tiles, so that's a pretty good argument to put it on Gaul. We've got a lot of open spots available. Well, this is already going to be moving robots into these areas, so I don't want to do that. And then Akram, Akram definitely has some resources available to it. It's a tricky call, to be honest, because we at least have infrastructure in place for this. But I think I'm gonna give Gaul a bit of a head start, especially because it's not a particularly friendly one to my own species, so I want to try and populate it as quickly as I can. So let's resettle you. It's going to cost me 100 energy, which is nothing, so. Not a problem at all, K5. I obviously feel bad when I do it earlier on in the cast because it doesn't always necessarily translate into additional viewers. I am very surprised that this is still a negative. I'm curious if that'll change when the month ticks over. Yes. So yeah, especially early on in the stream, I assume people who are already predisposed towards the broadcast will know about your stuff, but I figure it's better to say that sort of thing outright than just leave it as implied. And certainly it doesn't stop me from being able to say nice things the second time.
Research actualized.
Okay, space torpedoes. These torpedoes are essentially very large, slow-moving missiles. They are equipped with more powerful warheads and shield modulators that let them slip unmolested through energy screens. Oh, okay. We've got some cool options here. So in terms, we've got, first of all, a lot sort of built up from our, our previous research efforts. Obviously it would be brilliant to do living metal, but this is just too much. Waiting 415 months so that we can get living metal is insane. Droid workers is exceptionally tempting. And this is mostly because this will do a great job of overcoming the challenge that I have on YAML Prime, which is that all of these robots keep getting produced, but I can only put them in manual labor, which is no longer available on that colony. Also, if it comes to war, obviously having robotic assault armies would be pretty cool because they take energy as an upkeep, and I've got lots of that. Exotic gas refineries, again, kind of cool, although in this case it's turning minerals into exotic gases, and what I would prefer is to be able to pull them out of the sky. And then I can sort of consider some of my, let's say, lesser technologies, but in this case they'll actually perform some pretty important functions. So carrier operations, the hangar bay improvement is one that I want quite a bit, because if you take a look at my trade routes, we have, with the addition of a couple of extra guns, basically, we've sort of locked down pretty much everywhere on our paths, the exception being right here. So if I want to eliminate piracy from my existing setup, I can maybe replace the hydroponics bay with a with a hangar bay, and all of a sudden I'm able to defend my entire trade route, which of course it's not just that I'm looks like there's still some piracy going on here as well. So it doesn't wipe it out, it just okay. So I didn't eliminate it so much as I just I let it grow to its maximum value. I think the reasoning still applies. Basically, this is going to be my answer for my last building. So there's in my opinion, there's a pretty good argument for the hangar bay, or sorry, carrier operations, because it's also relatively inexpensive. My alternatives, obviously, bonuses towards research is pretty good, because that will help me overcome the challenges that I have with Empire Sprawl. Crystal infused plating, I mean, I'm never going to complain about that particular bonus, although I don't believe I have the luxury resource required to be able to build it. And then, of course, improvements to my weaponry, coil gun or the Ceramo metal armor. These, of course, are all nice to have, but the important thing to remember about these is that I'm always going to have them available because they've been partially researched through debris. And, of course, if I generate more debris, I'll have more opportunities to research them. So in this case, I'm going to go with carrier operations just because it really seems to hit it hits the main thing that has been bothering me a little bit, which is I've got unused resources in the star bases. And I do have piracy, whereas the other irritant in the form of assembling robots that aren't necessarily being worked, well, in the end, I can always transfer them to other colonies. And right now, for YAML Prime, it's not like I have tiles that aren't being worked. It's more specifically the fact that they are, it's sort of the manual labor tiles that aren't being worked. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I think, what are we looking at? It's only 91 now? I find that very suspicious, but I'm going for it. I was meaning to ask you, K5, did you pick up anything in the Steam sale, or otherwise, obviously there was GOG and Humble and all the other platforms having their sales. Did you pick up anything over the holidays that might be
Ships upscaled.
worth sharing, or otherwise to your liking? Okay, back to mining stations.
Future market survey complete.
How are we looking at our technology? So engineering is our laggard, but we currently don't have any immediate engineering available, so we'll go for the money. And then we can basically send the construction ship to claim this right away. This fellow is currently idle, so what we're going to do is we're going to send them straight to... Actually, I'm going to send them to this little triangle just to see... I lied, it's not just the triangle I'm going to do. This is mostly just to see what I'm giving up. So if there's some really sweet resources I can claim this is not the most efficient route. Sorry, I'll explain what's going on there in a second. This is not the most efficient use of this construction ship. Obviously, it'd be nice to build up all this infrastructure. But I do want to claim Halvam as quickly as I can and build the colony ship. But yeah, basically the plan here is just to see whether or not it's worth pushing my claims up to their border. I'm perfectly content leaving it here, or leaving it just here, because this is a decent enough choke point. But you know, if I'm going to make an aggressive move, I should have a fairly clear idea early on what I'm taking. Essentially, I just want to find out how much is this stuff worth fighting for, especially because obviously they have their own, they have their own. So suddenly now I know why they're not, maybe not as aggressive as I thought they might be. This is all ridiculous, by the way. I think this is the challenge of me playing a Megacorp, is that I'm probably very much a wide player still, and Megacorps are pretty obviously designed to be played tall. Anyways, it does raise a very interesting question in terms of why haven't they expanded down below here, and my suspicion is there probably just isn't that much for me to claim. So, we received a communique from a previously unknown spacefaring empire that called themselves the Baranthi Star Realm. They claim to have learned of our existence by listening in on the communications of another empire that we are in contact with. These guys are pacifists and xenophiles, so they probably don't get along very well with the United Scythian League, and it's very likely that we will be able to open up some trading relationships with these guys. So I speak on behalf of the Baranthi, the Baranthi Star Realm, and I bring you greetings. Our great leader, High King Pendlum Den Subir, is pleased to have made contact with your unique species, and we look forward to an exchange of culture and ideas. So it says elective monarchy, so maybe? Nope, they're still dictatorial. All right. We won't get along for that reason, but they are xenophiles, so hopefully this will get around. Hey, the exception! How are you doing, comrade? So, I believe we're also xenophiles. Yes, we are. So, let's say xenophile materialist is probably our best call here. Cooperation will surely benefit us all. Okay, I'm trying to figure out what happened with the colors there, so... Nope, those are species within our... So what are we looking at here? We've got the... Oh, well, I don't care about them. Okay, so they are enemy of my enemy, which is good. And, okay, yeah, so this is all great. So, commercial pact first. Form a commercial pact with this empire. This will increase the value of both empires' trade networks and will increase their trust of us by 0.25 each month up to a maximum of 50. It will cost us 25 influence each month. We will get 2141 and they will get 2509 each month as long as the deal is active. That sounds like a great deal to me. We'll also throw we'll do a non-aggression and a defensive pact. So that's going to hit us pretty hard on the influence. But I'm not entirely sure that's the worst thing that could happen to me right now, because these guys are going to be an important check on these folks, and I don't really want to go to war over anything. And finally, we'll do a research agreement. Again, we're paying a pretty hefty price for all of this, but I think in the long run, this will be worth it. And I also think we're going to get a little bit of a bonus from the Xeno Equality lobby. No, not a problem at all. The exception, I just said hello. Nothing major on my part. Unless, a hello from the streamer is like the greatest badge of honor on Twitch. You watch our backs, we'll watch yours. Yes, this is a sound proposal. We agree to your offer of a commercial pact. Very well, we will share our knowledge with Rhizome Capital in exchange for your own. Alright. Give me a territory! No. Now the most important part. Where's your capital? Bud Hawthorne, son of Ebenezer Hawthorne, may he rest in peace, will be opening a new branch. Get it? No. We're going to open it on a new system. It will cost us almost 2,000. I've got a lot though, and I mean 39 a month. That is obscene. But it is going to cost me a lot of influence. Okay, I get 2 corporate buildings. Today is a good day. Let's take a look at the population on the rest of these. So it's size 14, but how many people are on it? Doesn't say. So let's make the educated guess that the closer it is to the capital, the more likely it is to be. Well, actually, no. There's some indicators I can get, like districts and. The number of districts and whatnot. So I think Zom will probably be a bigger planet than... Almost certainly. Okay. Let's just take a quick peek at some of these others. I will want to open a branch on all of these, but I do need to be a little conscious of what I'm paying for each of these expansions, so... I'll eat that. Okay, good news. I mean, the 20 energy really is something that makes it tempting. I might do the 3rd. The 4th and the 5th are a little hard to justify, especially with the influence cost. So we'll open 3 branch offices. Okay, now here's an important thing. We basically expanded all of our... I believe we've got a branch office in all of these systems. But they don't have the population required in order to be able to sort of build up these resources that I need. So what I want to be focusing on right now is... So one of the reasons why I like branch offices so much is they wind up being like a free version of one of these. So I want to be thinking a little bit about what kind of expansion I want in the future. So I'm getting a little bit low on consumer goods. It makes sense for me to build at least one building that will get me consumer goods. Which... What are we looking at? I mean, energy's nice. Yeah, so virtual entertainment studios. Using nanotransaction systems and neurochemical retention algorithms, these development houses bring the latest in virtual entertainment software into the homes and lives of billions of sapient consumers. So we'll definitely build one of those. And I think it's time for me to actually put up or shut up as far as the my dedication to technology and Unity is concerned. So I think private research enterprises or public relations firms are going to be my next priority. Here's a way for me to think about this. So we're hovering at between 70 and 80, so... Say my upper bound is 80. I'll go for the pessimistic case. So we're looking at basically a 7% increase versus the 90. Well, you know, I don't even need to look at the. I don't even need to calculate the percentage. There, it's the same base value. So I'm 91 on Unity right now. So it actually makes sense for me to. At the moment, it kind of makes sense for me to do more private research enterprises. What I might do is I might juggle it between private research and Unity production. So we'll do. Here's the research. Basically, it's entertainment studios, and the private research is dedicated towards making even better games. And then let's say we'll make you built around PR. And then, of course, because science had the... So the idea here is that I basically want to say... So the challenge with this reasoning is that there's no rule saying that a point of research is equal to a point of Unity. As a matter of fact, you need a lot more Unity in order to be able to achieve particular goals, at least at this point. So, you know, it's not a good base assumption for me to say that, okay, one's a 7% increase as opposed to the other. But I also don't want to spend, like, I'm not going to sit down and get a spreadsheet open and figure out every last detail about what I'm doing in the game. So as a rough shorthand, I say, okay, if I value these, essentially what I'm saying, because I don't have a strong view on whether or not I'm getting Unity or research, I'm going to weight them equally, which is not a good sort of objective standard to hold. But because I find them roughly equal, a point of research is going to go further than a point of Unity. Of course, this is technically 18 points of research because it's going towards physics, society, and engineering. But and then, you know, scaling costs and whatnot. But in this case here, I'm gonna go basically 2 private research enterprises, 1 public relations firm, and 1 virtual entertainment studio, basically, so I can get myself a little bit of a kick in the pants as far as consumer goods are concerned. I'm not too worried about the 2 alloys. That's not gonna move the needle too much for me. And as soon as I find moats, I'm gonna start burning up the moats for some better alloys right away. If I had a way of getting like a ton of amenities, I might consider that. But in reality, what I probably want to be focusing on in the worst case scenario is a fast food chain, just so that I can move away from sort of the inefficient use of some tiles. So again, the idea here is that if I find external sources of food, so these are things like hydroponic plants and whatnot, I'm able to divest myself of these agricultural districts, and instead I can build up mining districts or generator districts. Generator districts will allow me to buy whatever other goods I need on the open market, whereas mining districts are going to be feeding into my ability to make refined goods, which are going to be done in these tiles here. So there's lots of reasons to go for one particular choice or the other. But in this case here, I wanted to be focusing on mostly the things that I'm getting the biggest penalties for in terms of Empire Sprawl. In fact, you can take a look here when I split my technology cost and my tradition adoption cost. It probably would have made more sense to do 2 PR firms, because I get hit quite a bit more heavily on the Empire Sprawl for the tradition adoption costs. But I am still operating under the illusion that I'm getting near the end of sort of my expansion phase. I'll probably be willing to hold off a bit on... Oh, hello! The customers, clients, and rubes of the galaxy at long last seem ready to accept a quasi-centralized platform for deregulated, mid-scale international commerce. We can promote one of our worlds to play host to this commercial hub to maximize potential revenue. Rhizome Capital unlocks decision to nominate for Galactic Market Hub, begins the founding of the Galactic Market event chain. Of course we're doing that. Decisions? Oh wait, it's the planet. Okay, nominate this planet as a trade hub candidate for the Coalescing Galactic Market. Applies a base marketplace competitiveness rating modifier to the planet according to its local conditions. The better the rating, the more likely the planet will play host to the future galactic market. Feel like this is probably my best candidate. While being in excess of galactic trade is a position as prestigious as it is profitable. The market is fickle, but with enough incentives, we might be able to lure the big players to establish themselves on this planet. We will spare no expense. I hope your internet's going a little bit better for you, the exception, but if it's not, you probably can't hear this, so.
Special project actualized.
The Zukol swarm secured. The Zulkor are swarming insect analogs, unusual both for their large size and the fact that they are lithivores, feeding off rocks and minerals in the ground. One of the shuttles belonging to the RCA Hemivalis sustained serious damage when it inadvertently passed through a large swarm and several Zulkors began to feed on its hull. The construction of the special containment facilities required to hold these creatures has already begun at the Museum of Exobiology on Rhizome Capital. All of the specimens asked for by the Museum of Exobiology have been secured. The museum has grown to a massive facility where artificial gravity generators and atmospheric processors are used to simulate the environments of over a dozen worlds. Visitors are journeying from all across Rhizome Capital to see its wonders. So we got 500 social, 500 energy credits, another 40 influence, which is good because we obviously burned up quite a bit to achieve some goals, and 1,104 unity. And is the science ship? Okay, so the science ship isn't quite sure what to do with itself, and I'm not quite sure what to do with it. So in one sense, it kind of makes sense to see what's going on here, but this science ship's more or less got that taken care of. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to send it out to Dojak. And my reasoning behind this is I'm not convinced that these guys are here anymore. Now that I've got the better sensors, I'll be able to see that. In the... Holy smokes, that takes a while. Is there anything better I can do? Not really. Captain Shield, thank you very much for the host. Again, Streamlabs is not playing nice. It's really funny. It triggers when I don't want it to. And yet now that I'm okay with alerts coming up. All right, well, I'll figure this out by next cast. Well, I'll try to figure this out by next cast. No promises. But sorry about that, Captain Shield. I really do appreciate that, host. So, what was I saying? Again, my guess here is that these guys aren't actually around. They were hanging around this system here, and the other way of thinking about this is, let me consider my costs. Well, the worst cost that I'm going to encounter is that I go to Dojak, I find out I can't pass through, and so we just head up to Hokaja and see if any of these guys are kicking around. You know, I was probably going to move up north anyway. Essentially what I'm looking for are sort of some natural barriers for my empire. Dojak is a great choice. In fact, Orub is probably better than Dojak, except that it does have some science. So really, the matter here is just trying to find some convenient, or not convenient, but just trying to find some sensible places for me to put the boundaries. And I've been a little tight-fisted with my resources. Obviously, I could send my fleets out to just smash anything that's standing in my way. But I do kind of like having some natural barriers because, of course, the fact that I've got these guys are friends. I'm not going to go to war with them over territory, but if I can deny them some really cool stuff, I'm not going to turn down that possibility either. So, yeah, actually, it's maybe worth while I'm at it. Let me take a quick second How you doing, citizen? Let me take a quick minute here because I'm trying to get a little bit better at this, but also acknowledging the people who auto-host or just generally host. By the way, I think Johnny Big Time might have given me a manual host as well. I'm sorry if I missed that, Johnny. I think you're here. If you're not, ignore that. But with the auto host, we've got Ulster Fighter, Chaotic Tabris, Captain Shield 616, Star Bright Knight, Flowfi, Inferno Fowler, K5RTO, Vanguard Master, The Sleepbringer, Unknown Brigade, Sir Tristan Live. Sir Tristan is also a Stellaris streamer. Nubasaur 42. Oh. Okay, I'm going to do this faster. Captain Shield 616, Vanguard Master, Ulster Fighter, Starbright Knight, Sir Tristan Live, Johnny Big Time, Nubasaur 42, Chaotic Tabris, The Sleepbringer, Custom Games, Amber Ray, Flowfi, Malicide, K5RTO, Inferno Fowler, and Unknown Brigade. I'm sorry to have to rush through those, but they change the order each time. And I know that Sir Tristan Live also does Stellaris, if you guys are into that sort of thing. Hey, Chaotic Tabris. I always appreciate the auto hosts. I'm trying to get a little bit better at acknowledging them during the cast on the chance that people are looking for credit where credit is due is really the best way of saying it. Hope you're doing well. So yeah, basically, I'm okay sending that ship out to... I'm okay sending this ship out to do their thing. Oh, I also probably should be paying a little more attention. Founding the galactic market, the establishment of an internal commercial forum is nigh, and whoever controls the centralized exchange station stands to benefit. Should we desire to compete for the title of market host, we have a few years to use decisions to nominate one of our worlds to tether the galactic market station. Well, I was under the impression that I was doing that. We are pretty darn low. So apparently... these guys are beating us economically. They're beating us technologically. They're beating us every possible way. Gonna have to work on that. I quite like the changes, Chaotic Tabris. I'm not, I wouldn't necessarily say I'm in a position to make any strong recommendations in terms of how to play this game. I suspect I'm probably going to lose, but I'm having a good time losing. And that's what that's all about, is the very majestic music. I do occasionally hear that Stellaris is too quiet, and I sort of... I get it. The best I can do, though, is lower my own volume. Well, I mean... that's the game volume cranked. I could not make it any higher than this. I don't know, is that any better? You have no idea how the trade routes work. So... basically, each starbase you build, has a certain reach. So you can sort of see these trade collection buttons. And this is just, that's its ability to actually pick up the trade. And then in addition to that, so... like, basically, what the whole trade system winds... oh, you were halfway through the game when you noticed the silver rings of trade and were not a resource and you didn't have the tech to explore yet. I mean, the real trick about it is just trying to come up with intelligent... so I think one of the things that they're trying to do with this is to come up with some intelligent placement of star bases that are not directly related to just kind of sealing on, like you don't, like they, I think what they want to do is they want you to have some star bases within your borders, and not just, like, obviously you can have the ones which are on your planets, but basically, it was, in my opinion, it was increasingly hard to justify military, sort of military, installations on interior systems. So like a good example of this would be, could you imagine a capital in, you know, in any other context that is completely devoid of any kind of protection. Like, it just doesn't really make that much sense. So in the case of the trade, I sort of have the feeling, ooh. I mean, this isn't particularly strong, but I bet that's causing them to reconsider
Research
expansion.
actualized.
Advances in material technology and deep shaft mining techniques allow geoengineering at previously unthinkable depths and temperatures. Magma hotspots can now be exploited, suppressed, or even relocated. Out of curiosity, guys, when I said that I increased the volume to the game, did that actually, like, was that noticeable at all? Because in terms of my levels for Stellaris, like, it's not moving the needle at all. And I don't seem to have any way of controlling the audio in OBS. Is that how you combat Yeah, so I'll give you an example of this chaotic Tabris. Let me just pick a social research. Habitability is actually a pretty good one for me to go for right now. Unfortunately, I'm going to go for adaptive bureaucracy, and then we're going to change this around. So Rose Hawthorne is now going to be my... Wait, I screwed up, didn't I? Flora is going to be my... And Rose is going to be my engineer. And that's just so that I can make sure that people are taking advantage of their specialties. Okay, I'm just going to knock it back. So presumably there wasn't any change in volume just from there. I'm just trying to think, like... Oh, wait a minute. That probably improved it a lot, didn't it? Oh, Steam, you rascal. I'll explain what happened in a minute. Yeah, so Chaotic Tabris, if you take a look, so it says here, right now I've got piracy growing. So max trade route value 2195, max piracy is 548, current piracy of 548, and in 5 days it's at the max value. I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure how it figured that. And one of the reasons for this is that I've got Akram here. Akram doesn't have any defensive buildings at the moment. I built a couple of trade hubs. I did want to build a gun, but unfortunately I couldn't quite make the gun work. Not without knocking my naval capacity down. So what I did here, basically I'm going to build hangar bays. Now an alternative would be to take a look at a place like Python. Python's got a gun battery and a missile battery. So why did I do that? Well, we can take a look. So here we've got a max piracy of 461. Oh, hang on. So trade route value is 1847, max piracy 461. Piracy effects are 0 because of current piracy minus 464, base protection of 2, and then because there's a star base nearby, it's reducing it to 0. So the fact that... So if you take a look here, right, this thing has got 2 guns, so 1, 2. This thing doesn't have anything protecting it at the moment, so at the moment it's not giving any protection. Now we can contrast it here, right? You can see all of these things along the route. Basically through the combination of defensive platforms that I've set up. In this case, we've got, again, a gun and a missile battery. So that's going to protect this, this, and this. The equity system doesn't actually have the doesn't have any defensive platforms. Actually, neither does Yamal. Now that I think about it, but because it's sort of got all these neighboring areas that do have defensive structures, I'm still able to sort of collect. I'm able to collect and not have to worry too much about the piracy. I also totally forgot that Yamal has got some free resources available. So let's think a little bit about what I want to do here. I could potentially... I mean, I could build trade hubs. That doesn't make a lot of sense, though. Honestly, more anchorages is the answer for... and at some point, I might build like a... I suppose I could build like a hangar bay or something like that, but it's not that important to me at the moment. Oh yeah, I mean, so Chaotic Tabrez, like I like this patch a lot. I know there's so I think Aspec seemed to. I didn't actually watch the video. I don't watch a lot of Stellaris content, which makes me bad because like it would be nice if I saw more about how people cover this game. But he seemed to have some mixed views in terms of what this patch added. But I honestly, like, for me, I like the fact that there are things to do in this game that are reasonably complex that don't involve sending ships to blow things up. It's not to say that you can't do something like that in a game. It's just that I... just got a message. What was I saying? Yeah, so like I like the fact that there are things to do in this game. It's still going to be a military game, but basically this idea of... So I guess the thing to me about this game is that building a vast interstellar empire is about more than just, you know, crushing everybody underneath you. I like this idea of being able to build a society, including making decisions in terms of how you allocate your resources between military ends and domestic needs. And if you, like, you can play an interstellar North Korea if you want. You can put nothing into consumer goods and you can put everything into military. You're just going to have a harder time with the game than if you try and balance things out. And I think that's a really interesting direction for the game to go. And it's also a non-obvious one, so... Anyways, we're going to clear the blocker. This is going to help me get some more districts so I can decide between whether or not I want to put something into generator districts or agriculture. But again, that'll give me options. I'm not really married to it at the moment. Oh, Jesus. I need to just stop adding people on Steam. I don't think I've ever... Like, streaming does occasionally have people who just want to add you on Steam, which I'm totally fine with, because I basically like having more people that I know in the area. But, like, the number of just spam accounts that are like, hey, I'm not going to ask you for your items or whatever. And I'm like, I'm not going to your website. I'm not doing any of that nonsense. I'm all right, Captain Shield. I'm happy that the audio thing is working out. I don't know if it's too loud now or not, but I'm glad that I can actually let the game sort of speak for itself. Okay, the research station output was the reason why we did To Boldly Go. So as cool as it is to have more research alternatives, we pretty much have to do the databank uplinks. So there we go. It's actually kind of funny. So if it's 8,000, that's roughly the technology level that we're here. I mean, obviously we're catching up on some of our low-hanging fruit, but it's actually not as bad as I thought it would be. We're definitely paying a lot, though. And we'll pay even more. I mean, obviously I'm going to be adding more colonies to the mix, but... if I were to do it all over again, I would probably not do all this expansion out here. I definitely think going out to Akram, it wasn't the worst decision that I made. I probably committed a little bit too much for taking that from them. But then I also, like, I really wasn't sure what my alternatives were. And what it's done here, of course, is it's made it very expensive for me to get things like Gaia
Outlier
Worlds.
identified.
There's movement in the upper atmosphere of Eunuch 4, as though a ship was gliding hurriedly through the clouds. How did you fix it? So Steam will do some wacky things to your system settings every once in a while. The worst one for me is whenever I adjust microphone settings. There will be times, some of you who've watched the stream for a long time might recall that there are some occasions where my voice, it's not just loud, but it sounds like the microphone is like the lower quality than even when I had just a headset that I won in a competition, sort of a level. I'm very curious about what just happened there. There's definitely something that went into this system and then it vanished. It makes me think that there's a sieve just waiting here. I'm gonna keep an eye there. Hey! I like this event chain a lot. A lost amoeba. The RCA Jurius has located the source of the movement in the upper atmosphere of Eunuch 4. Surprisingly, there was no ship hidden in the clouds, but rather a young space amoeba, its mother nowhere to be seen. There is no way of knowing how this juvenile was separated from its mother or others of its kind, but one thing is certain. It appears to have imprinted on the RCA Juris. As the crew completed their survey of Eunuch 4, they found that the amoeba was following them. It had proven difficult to shake, and Rowan Garland has taken quite a shine to the youngster's determination. Our science officer suggests allowing the juvenile to follow the vessel, certain that we may learn more about space amoebas in the process. I'm going to screenshot this because I have a feeling that Eyes of Sin will really enjoy this one. So, very well, out of the question, just keep avoiding it, or we can certainly study it. Order a dissection! Rhizome Capital becomes the new owner of a lost juvenile. But yeah, so that's always been a result of Steam basically messing with the microphone settings, so it puts it to maximum value, and then it goes into maximum value in OBS, and it basically it blows out the levels, and it sounds horrible. So, similar story with Stellaris was that in the system settings, Stellaris was set to a much lower volume. For me, it wasn't that big of a deal to just change my system volume up while I played, but obviously that doesn't translate into the OBS settings. But if you do change the individual volume for a program, I am really curious what's going on here. I mean, it could be that these are raiding parties running around. And I mean, they could crush me, so I don't want to.
Research actualized.
But that was essentially what it was. Somewhere along the line, the volume had been smooshed. Hello, Lady Dow. It's always lovely to see you. How are you doing? What have you been streaming lately? Because I've definitely not seen you live in quite some time. For those of you who don't know Lady Dow, she is also a streamer, or occasional streamer. I've been able to see her in my chat a little more often, which makes me happy, but what makes me even happier is I get a chance to see her in Johnny Big Time's channel, and she is the one who is responsible for the highly enjoyable little clip where Johnny has this moment of realization that what I wrote did not make any sense. You haven't been streaming, but you were thinking about it. It's been almost a year. Okay. I always feel bad because if I miss someone and they've been streaming for a while, I feel like a heel. But if I turn around and say, oh yeah, you know, I loved your last cast, and like it's been a year, then I look like even more of a jackass. So, but I would love it if you'd stream again. Anyways, if you are so inclined, you can definitely give her a follow to watch her when she streams again. I got to watch her play Outlast, and I'm certainly looking forward to trying out Outlast 2 at some point in the future. I'm not even following you. I'll fix that right now. Am I really not following you on Twitch? I'll be. Sorry about that. Fixed. Anyways, don't do like I did. Check out Lady Dow. Please follow her. And hopefully, with enough encouragement, we'll be able to bring her back. Maybe I was the reason she was not streaming. I'm terribly sorry about that, Lady Dow. Yeah, no, I feel like a jackass. So, and Lazy Bear, how are you doing? Good to see you as well. But no, I will actually say, when I watched her play Outlast, I had a jolly good time of it. She exists sort of in the medium space. So the thing I liked about Outlast with her was she exists in the sort of that space in between. By the way, okay, if any of you... Well, no, actually, so the thing I'm really bad at, Captain Shield, is that if I am streaming, I will sometimes move off to do something. But generally, like, especially, so a big one for me is if I've watched somebody's channel, like, for instance, if somebody's hosting or something along those lines, I generally just assume that I've been following them, because that's normally how I watch stuff. So I'm actually really bad for watching things and enjoying it, and I'm like, it's been a while since I've seen so-and-so, you know, stream. And then at some point I run into them again, and they're like, you know, yeah, like, why would you see what you're streaming, or why would you, know what I've been streaming? You don't follow me. And I'm like, oh, and then I'm like, no, of course I follow you. And sure enough, I check and it's not in there. So if, maybe now is a good time to mention, if I'm not following you, and not even if you'd like me to follow you, if you think I should be following you, please let me know. I'm not that stingy with my follows. So, but that was a really bad oversight. I do actually really enjoy Lady Dow's stream. And again, in Outlast, I liked her because she was in sort of the space in between the usual... I think people have got a little bit of a cottage industry of the overreacting to horror games, and I really don't care that much for those kinds of streams. But on the other hand, it's nice to have people who are engaged with it. You know, not entirely sure stoic playthroughs of horror games are the way to go either. So in the case that a case of Lady Dow, she was obviously very nervous about going into certain parts of the level, but I've got, but she wasn't, she wasn't over the top whenever there was like a sudden scare or something like that. It was really enjoyable, and she was clearly very involved in the game, so that's why I find it so memorable. So. No problem, Lady Dow. I should have done it before, and I'm obviously very sorry that I didn't do that before. You don't need to thank me. I should probably be apologizing a little more profusely than I am. But no, I really do mean that, guys. So if I should be following you, if I've said I've followed you, if I am not following you for any reason, I do not like being some ivory tower guy looking down on people. So hell, if you just want the follow, if you want to boost your numbers, let me know. Containment force fields are excellent for isolating and holding various substances or specimens so that they can be analyzed in detail. That is very true. I wasn't sure. I was actually, when I was watching, I wasn't 100% sure if you were doing night vision or if you were just playing with a monitor. I think you just had your monitor on, if memory serves, but it's been a while, so. Okay, so we've got auxiliary fire control, which will give me a bonus to chance to hit. Or I can go even harder on the quantum probe. I mean, both of them are, all of these are towards my specialty. I think in this case I'm going to do quantum probes just because this is still in line with my infrastructure spending, right? I'm going to be building up my capacity here. I'm going to be building up 2, 3, 4 systems, and then possibly Dojak as well. Not only, I would like to see Lady Dao do more Outlast. I'd also like to see her do Whistleblower.
Upscaling complete.
Okay, so let's head over here. We'll colonize
Incoming
immediately.
Transmission.
Okay, so the Bernathi shareholder people should not be prisoners in Rhizome capital, and neither should our own people be limited to inhabit our territory. Let us agree to remedy this. The big worry that I have is that these guys are more appealing than I am. So I could lose out on... I could wind up losing out on population as a result of this. So what does their capital look like? "52 amenities." There's like a happiness, 83 stability. Compared that, oof, yeah. Sorry, but no. You stream 48 hours every day for 2 months, got 5 followers, gave up. It is very difficult, especially at the start, Lazy Bear. Again, it's one of these things that you kind of have to enjoy the process enough on its own to... Like, I don't see how you can get through streaming without just enjoying the process, even if there's nobody there. That's a personal thing. In my own particular case, I know I had a lot of help early on in terms of people sort of drawing attention to my broadcast. I also had a little bit of an advantage in the fact that there wasn't a lot of Crusader Kings coverage at the time, and so people were, people were sort of responding to that as well. I don't have hangers yet, huh? But I'll be honest too, like there's lots of, I think one of the things that's sometimes very difficult to communicate, but I think it's an important one to, remember is that
Upscaling
there's
complete.
lots of ways of participating on Twitch. There will always be need for more, there will always be a need for more viewers than streamers. And that doesn't mean that there should be like a fixed quantity or anything like that. It's just that, like, there's no... I don't think that streaming should be seen as a particularly special thing to do, if that makes any sense. I think, if you aren't particularly inclined towards doing a certain kind of entertainment or playing games in a certain way, it's probably better that more people participate on Twitch in the form of things like moderators, or that they go out and that they support they support their favorite streamers in the forms in a form like
Upscaling
letting their
complete.
friends know about it, or there's lots of different... I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's more ways to participate on Twitch and to be a really active and really important member of the Twitch community through being an active viewer. The better comparison that I can make is actually between
Potential market survey completed.
making games, and so 4 industry, 4 engineering is almost enough for me to want to push in on their territory. We'll see what else we find in here, but there are definitely a lot of people who, there's a lot of people who play games and they'll want to turn around and make games. And then some subset of those people will actually wind up making games. And that's probably roughly the ratio that it should be, for the same reason that, if you really enjoy reading books, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will enjoy writing them. I really liked movies, and then I worked in movies, and it turns out that it was a really good fit for a while. But that's not the normal path for things. And a nice intermediate step, like you can be somebody who just really loves playing games, and obviously having a nice robust player base for a game is a good thing. But if you want to be a super fan of a game, there's lots of other things that you can do other than just make a game. Modding a game is a huge deal. And that's something that actually creates more enjoyment for the people who like your favorite game. If you make a good mod for a game, you're really enhancing everybody's enjoyment, and that's a different thing from going out and making your own. Although that might also lead to you making a game, because obviously PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds and Dota 2, Counter-Strike, there's a lot of very popular games which have had their genesis in modifying existing technology. But it's a very similar thing with Twitch. Like, the experience on Twitch for me is not the same if I don't have an active chat. I know when I monologue like this, I'm not always directly responding to chat or something along those lines, but obviously I get a lot more out of this, and I'd like to think that you guys get more out of this by participating in chat. And then, I'm always looking to grow, and part of that involves me getting a little bit better at this. But part of it is just also people becoming aware of the stream and finding out if it's their kind of thing. So it's hard, because I always look at this as a hobby. There used to be a time when this was sort of paying for itself, but that's long since passed. Twitch pretty much made it so that I can't make money off this. But that doesn't mean that I'm gonna stop doing it. I'm doing this for enjoyment, and obviously, especially over the past year or so, this has been a really wonderful experience because I've been able to engage with games like Stellaris and Crusader Kings in a way that I haven't before, and more importantly, Cultist Simulator, something I probably wouldn't have engaged with nearly as deeply if I didn't. And it's reciprocal, right? Because there's definitely people who are able to experience Cultist Simulator who wouldn't have otherwise as a result of those. So it's almost like any other job. There are people who, I'm pretty rotten in the kitchen, so if I could, I would always want to let Johnny do the honors, and I'll happily clean the dishes or pay him or buy him. I guess he doesn't drink a lot, but I'll give him a nice kale shake or whatever he likes. But yeah, like we're all particularly good at something. So, I would love it. Like, if I were to have a role in gaming, it would definitely be in taking player data, all the telemetry that you get from games, and being able to figure out exactly what the players are thinking during that. Because that's a hard... look at Battlefield 5. They've had to undo a couple of their changes because they were looking at player data and they had one thought. They had a particular goal that they were looking for, and it didn't turn out. There was a part of the player base that reacted quite negatively to it. And it's not easy to do, but this is the sort of stuff that I do day in and day out in econ. Very, very little of it is the statistical part. A lot of it is about trying to think about how people will respond. Basically, if you just take a statistical model and you get the parameters, you learn absolutely nothing about how people are going to respond if you change those parameters. And that's usually what economists are interested in. So, yeah, I don't know. I would probably not be well served as, a design lead on Stellaris. But if they're ever looking for somebody to look at how the players play this game and why they're making certain decisions all the time, I might be able to carve out a space for me there. But as it is, I mean, my country needs me. Clearly that is why I don't work in games. Anyways, let me just quickly catch up. We've got Lady Dowd that says that solves that. Guess I'll do a stream either Friday night or Sunday. Well, I'm looking forward to it, and I'll be able to finally be aware of it. Lazy Bear says it's not easy to get a lot. I find it's word of mouth. Luck and word of mouth. You're not a pro like these guys. Might be able to tell you exactly how it is. Well, I mean, I just gave a big rambling monologue on it. Hopefully some people find that aligns with their experience. Johnny Big Time, this is my opinion, but if you're streaming for followers and you're doing it for the wrong reason. Yeah, well, I remember the way, I was actually very surprised that you apologized to that guy that was going in saying follow for follow, because he was being very annoying about it. And, like, there's no, like, I definitely pay attention to the follow numbers because I think they're an indicator as to whether or not I'm connecting the right way. But I mean, I didn't go main Cultist Simulator as soon as that was obviously, that was where the wind was blowing. Lady Down says, you like having at least one person to talk to, but you try to talk to yourself. And I mean, that's really where I think streamers get made. I feel very comfortable. I've always been more comfortable when I'm either speaking or streaming to large groups. Like, I am actually very happy, and I'm a lot more comfortable streaming when there's over 100 people or 200 or something like that in the channel. It's very rarely happened on this channel. It happens more on Steam. But that is when I'm in my element. Or like if I'm giving a seminar or something like that and the room is full. I live off of that. It is where I'm at my most comfortable. And like, Ask Guys of Sin, like she has specifically said that I behave differently, and I'm obviously a lot more comfortable in those environments as well. And that's just, I don't know if it's familiarity or what, but I really do feel I'm in my element when there's a large number. But everybody, like, that's so nice to say. Like, I'd love to have that problem of like, oh, only 300 people in the channel today. Like, clearly I'm not at that level. So I try to get a little bit better, and sometimes that means me really going in deep on some of these topics, because obviously it's a little bit more conversational and people aren't always waiting for, you know, the very next bit of gameplay, which is okay for me. Obviously, if I were to do this recording on my own as like a long play or a VOD, I would probably be speeding the game up a little bit more. But again, it's to each their own. 2.5 of them are? I think I missed out on one of them. Has another person living in their head. What are you talking about, John? Are you just talking to the other 4 people in here? Okay, sorry. I missed the line you were saying. Lazy Bear says you spend roughly 8 to 12 hours a day playing games. The streaming seemed like a fit for you, but you're not good at speaking with others even online. Yeah, and that's just it, Lazy Bear. Like, it's very hard to... So actually, here's the better way for me to put this, because it'll probably be a way I can put the whole streaming thing to bed, although if you guys want to keep talking about it, we can. I just want to deal with the Golferp Warriors when I can. It's a little bit like... Nah, I blew it. Lady Dow, always learn something new with System Shock around. Gattatabra says it's really hard when you don't have anyone you don't know. It's weird. It's like talking to yourself. Well, yeah, I mean, part of that just comes down to... part of that just kind of comes down to a personality thing. Like, I'm perfectly comfortable speaking to an empty chat. I've gotten used to having people here enough that I would feel a little weird if nobody spoke in chat the whole time, but I think I'd still be able to pull it off. But I think where I was trying to go with some of the streaming thing is that it's very hard... Well, actually, that's less surprising, Chaotic Tabris. I think streaming does appeal to shy people because there's something very different for interacting with people individually as opposed to, like, right now I'm just sitting in front of a monitor and a mic. Like, you're all text to me right now. And I try to speak as if I did have a room full of people in front of me, because again, that's where I feel in my element. But, you know, again, everybody's individual personalities are their own. And one of the most important things, I think, especially when you start talking about entertainment, is that, you know, everybody's going to have their little rules, right? It's like you have to be engaging, or you have to always greet people who come in, or you always have, you have to stream regularly, or you have to do this game, or, if you want to get partner, you need to do Dark Souls right when you're trying to make your numbers or whatever. And it's not that all of these things don't have some validity, but some of you might remember that there was a partnered streamer who basically got a bunch of people to, like, he basically was talking about me on his stream, and so, like, a bunch of people were coming onto Twitter and harassing me, and that was fine, because that's when I was working in the producer prices division, so, my job was relatively low intensity. I would be running a lot of programs, and they take a while to run, because we're working with a lot of observations. So, I was afforded a certain amount of leisure time on Twitter while I was waiting for the thing to run. And, like, it's funny because I didn't really say anything too aggressive to him. The only thing that I pointed out was that he was essentially saying that if somebody has their VODs at subscriber only, that, like, he was just gonna immediately block them or whatever. And the thing that I said is, like, you're not losing anything by somebody like this blocking you, because they were never going to give you revenue anyway. If you feel that your stuff is worth it, that's up to you to decide. Just know that you're cutting yourself off from a potential audience who might want to evaluate your content before you see it. Now, not to relitigate Twitter arguments or anything like that, but here's the thing. A guy who's a professional streamer is relying on volume, that you get a couple of cents from everybody who watches, but if you have hundreds of thousands or millions of people who watch you, then you're going to make some fairly decent money doing this. If you're a small-scale streamer, and what you have is a high-value but very niche product, so for instance, let's say that, I get in very close and I speak in these soft tones, and I were to do an entire stream this way, and maybe one day we'll play Stellaris, and one day we might play Victoria 2, and sometimes I'll do Surviving Mars, or maybe I'll just roll up a new character and I'll play a Breton in the Elder Scrolls series. If I were to do a series of streams like that, I were to say, I promise you that I will do 3 of these things a week, and in order to get access to these, you need to spend $5 a month. I'm not going to say that there is... Okay, I'm not going to be able to retire on that money, but I would be willing to bet that at least some people who've just heard that would say, I'm willing to spend $5 to access that. And I might say that, and if you come in live, you'll be able to hear all of this for free. It's just if you happen to want to lie back in the evening and relax after a hard day of work and hear these tones take you off to dreamland, I just need to make sure that I get some of my costs covered. Obviously you can do a specialist product along those lines, and at that point you're not trying for volume, because there's probably not going to be enough people in the world who want to experience something like that. So this is the thing. It's not that he's wrong, it's that he's an asshole, to quote The Big Lebowski. The thing is that the fact that he lucked into the position that he had doesn't necessarily equip him to talk about other people's business models. And I mean, again, like, obviously there's a certain personality type that doesn't necessarily want to be contradicted on the internet, so there you have it. Another example that you could take would be Grand Theft Auto roleplay. Obviously, Sheriff Eli was able to build a successful stream off of that, and I don't think anybody could have predicted that that was what people wanted at that time, but clearly he does that better than anyone else. He's a really talented streamer. But clearly, if GTA RP didn't become the thing that it did, he wouldn't have been quote-unquote discovered. So, it's like movies, it's like games. Nobody knows anything. It's a famous quote from William Goldman, who he was the one who wrote The Princess Bride. Nobody's going to know what the big hit is. I'm sure when Fortnite went to Battle Royale, they had a clear idea that there was demand for that sort of stuff. I don't think they could have predicted the level of success that they had with it. Everybody hopes for it, but I don't think anybody can honestly predict this thing is going to be massive. And so in the end, it's Polonius's advice to his son Laertes, to thine own self be true. Do what interests you. You never know where the interest is going to come in, and you might make it huge for just doing something a little bit off the beaten track, but it really has to come down to being, honestly, I've been meaning to write this blog for a long time. I honestly think that the people who make the best professional streamers are losers. People who have no other opportunities. I'm sure there are a bunch of people in London who talk about Total Biscuit as that guy who couldn't cut it as an insurance salesman. Because to my understanding, that was his origins. He worked as an insurance salesman until, I think, the financial crisis. I'd actually be very interested in seeing how many streamers got their start because their economic prospects turned down, and essentially they just did the thing that they were doing already. And it just so happened that was the time that people were looking for free entertainment, and some people became huge. Doesn't mean that these people aren't talented, but it also doesn't mean that luck didn't have a big role in it. And again, sometimes you're very lucky in the fact that the thing that you want to do, it happens to line up well with the moment. Sometimes you can realize a particular trend, a little bit like Epic did. They were able to do Battle Royale better than anybody else did, and as a result, they reaped the rewards of kind of the next big thing. And I mean, honestly, I'm fairly certain that people at Epic genuinely enjoy playing Battle Royale games. But if your condition for happiness is that you basically reach that top fraction of the population, sometimes I think people might be setting themselves up for disappointment just by virtue of the fact that they're pursuing something that maybe doesn't necessarily give them as much enjoyment. Like, I would love to be the world's greatest sociologist, but I would not be content as an ordinary sociologist. That's why I'm an economist. But if I could be the top of my field, hell, I'd love being the world's top physicist. Don't know anything about physics, but I probably wouldn't get a lot of satisfaction as just being like a lab assistant somewhere. Anyways, Oh, I didn't know you were Portuguese, or I suppose you're not Portuguese, but I didn't know that was the language you streamed in, Tabris. That's really cool. For several months now, we've received scattered reports of small numbers of alien mercenaries and privateers operating on the frontiers of our space. They call themselves the Grolferp, and are apparently exiles from a nomadic warrior culture inhabiting overcrowded space stations in and around the Veracast black hole, which is... I'm sure it'll be fine. Their passage near our space proceeded without incident, but they warned us against trespassing in the Veracast black hole. There's no Grolferp central government to speak of, but their various factions are engaged in constant infighting and often launch raids against neighboring star systems. Indeed, given their vast population and space-based production capability, the Grolferp would likely be a significant galactic power if they ever stopped killing each other. I was, as soon as I said, just because you speak Portuguese doesn't mean that you're from Portugal. There's an ongoing joke from Ragnus Domi that apparently Brazilians are everywhere on the internet. I don't know if that's true or not, but I will admit that was my guess. If you guys can just give me a quick second, I am going to very quickly go to the bathroom, and then I will give you. I will give you 110% on the Grolferp freeholder voice. So back in 15 seconds. more Dwamaks. What do you want, foolish Dwamak? What happened to make your face look like that? Reactor accident? Vacuum explosion? Hey! Look at you. We're the Grolfurp. We hunt Dwamak. If you've come to Grolip turf, we make Dwamak stew. Not good for you, yes? Hey! Perhaps you know of other Dwamaks. Perhaps you want them to be Dwamak stew. This can be arranged. Grolfurp not above fighting for Dwamaks against other Dwamaks, if price is right. Hey, Legion Divided. Look at that fence. I don't think I've seen that face before. Is that something they added in Megacorps? That's for everybody who says I don't have a range in in my voice acting.
Research actualized.
Hangar Bay. Okay, these manned strike craft are launched from the mothership and rely on their speed and small size to survive long enough to punch through enemy defenses. Boom! Alright, this is big. So obviously I'd love to do things like more robo modifications. There's a ton of military upgrades that I'd like to do, although as long as the Great Khan doesn't show up, I can sort of afford to shirk a little bit. So if you guys want to understand NATO, I can shirk a little bit on my defense spending because obviously I'm in a defensive pact with a massive power that's right up to the border of my only threat. So, but yeah, in this case, moat harvesting traps and exploit resource moats. I made sure that I rushed to the Zudra system in order to grab it. The biggest reason for me doing this is so I can restructure the industry on my capital system and just go to town on alloys. So, hey, the Eyes of Sin, how you doing? How is dinner? So even though this is a little bit more expensive than my alternatives, this is going to be a really big bonus in terms of my alloy production. So, well, eventually it'll be a big bonus in my alloy production. Now, let's also consider my trading routes. So first thing I want to do with Akram. So I'm not really convinced that I want to get rid of anything like my anchorages or whatnot. I think I can afford to get rid of the hydroponics bay, though. We're currently at 11 food, and we're going to be generating more people who can sort of work those tiles. So, wait a minute. I thought there was supposed to be a hangar bay here. Damn it! This thing's actually better for trade protection. Am I willing to give up? Well, yeah. I am actually willing to give up. But alright, let me take a look at my existing. So that is a shame. Okay, I will build the resource silo. In this case, we'll do hydroponics. And I'm going to replace the gun batteries with hangar bays. Aren't you guys just waiting for the next time that we encounter a barbarian civilization? Alright, let's think a little bit about where I want my colony ships to go next. So we can't do much about the Arctic world. I'm gonna take another screenshot. So I took a screenshot of something that that came up. Isaacson. So we adopted a space amoeba. So, the amoeba juvenile that joined our fleet some time ago appears to have reached full maturity. Now an impressive adult, she is no less loyal to the ships that gave her a new home when she was stranded on Eunuch 4. Her time spent with the fleet appears to have encouraged adaptive behaviors not typically found in wild space amoebas, making her a more formidable presence on the battlefield than others of her kind. Across Rhizome Capital, her image has become something of a mascot for the corporate spirit. The only question remains, what should we name her? Ah, that's right, Captain Shield. That was your contribution to the stream. So we can name our space amoeba Bubbles, Nyx, Renegade, Yuka, Saito, Boomer, Blaze, Nova, or these all are terrible. We should think of something better. This is anything but a democracy, but I am mildly curious if there are any strong feelings in chat as to what the adoptee should be called. We can, of course, roll the dice again. And in the meantime, I'm going to just take a quick look and see if there's anything else that I can build. So I've got 3 more jobs that I can fill. I am curious what types of jobs are available. 2 that can be performed by machines, and 1 that can be performed by people. This is very sad. So I can boost trade value and amenities. Then we're going to say no to more city districts. We definitely need more people. Alright, well, it's always been the case that Yamal has more work for people than drones. Against my better judgment, I am going to fill out that last district. So one of the reasons why I'm doing all of this is I want to make sure that I'm on my way up to my next special building. If I don't have 35 available jobs, I want to try and get myself to a point where I can get that. So we've got 2 new clerk jobs available now. On Gaul, we have what? 4 jobs, 6 people. Let's build another city district. We really only need 1 more population before we get the building slot. Captain Shield likes Saito. On Python... Okay, we really don't need to build any more infrastructure here because we've got... The population is clearly still... Oh, that's right. This is the one. This is the one affiliated with the worm. Okay. I really probably should be dropping more bots here, but we've got more than enough jobs for people. So, all right. If there's no other, I was thinking Yuka personally. I think I'm gonna do Yuka. Sorry, it's because it's a little more similar to the tile I found them in. Ooh. I wonder if they're protecting anything really cool there.
Outlier identified.
My eyes! The goggles do nothing! We briefly detected some unusual energy readings emanating from this planet. It might have been a glitch in our systems, or it could be a sign of something more. Alright, what's going on here? So the United Hythian League... Okay, the United Hythian League has declared the United Scythian League their rival. Scythian League has declared the Hythian League their rival. Fair enough. And we've got a non-aggression pact. So essentially, I have a feeling that these guys are going to wind up forming a federation before too long. I'm not sure any of this stuff is really worth going to war over, but I can be convinced. And Python looks like we've got something available. So we've got Hollow Theaters. Okay, so I don't really need to worry about amenities for the next little bit. We're already making drones. So I'm thinking a corporate site. It's either Ministry of Culture or a corporate site. And at this point, I think we need the raw Unity before I get the percent bonuses. So, corporate culture site it is. Okay, colony ships on the way. I think I actually need to make another one right away. I thought I had another colonizable planet within my borders. Apparently, I am a filthy liar. I'm very fond of Yucca, but we need to make sure that you actually get to the capital world. One of the things I am a little curious on, so I don't have the capacity for it right now, but if I like build defensive platforms on each of these areas and then just like arm them to the teeth, will I be able to push these guys back? Well, approaching Mindara 6, the RCA Juris suddenly received a glancing hit by several passing mass driver rounds. The projectiles were billions of years old, and based on their trajectory, they appear to be stray rounds fired from a neighboring galaxy. After missing their intended target, they continued on their journey for untold millennia until today. The rounds we've recovered are of an advanced design despite their incredible age.
Incoming transmission.
Yep.
Upscaling complete.
This is not a surprise. The galaxy is dark and full of terrors, shareholder. Join us in a federation for mutual protection. Let me just take a... I think generally this is a good idea. So Xeno equality. They'll be happy with Federation. Council of Scientific Betterment will like more science without war. Don't have much options there. I might regret this, but agree.
Through this federation, collaborative commerce will be assured.
Yeah, I knew I'd hit a cap. Alright, that's not going to be the end of the world because I'm actually behind on my... I am behind on my star bases, and I need to start making some decisions in terms of where I want to put them. So let's think about this. HQ. The Vetchar Zavonia. The Hulk orbiting Theman 1 is all that remains of the Vetchar Zavonia, a massive sublight generation ship belonging to a deeply religious alien race called the Mardak Vol. The ship has been ruthlessly purged of all life. The Mardak's ill-fated journey has been detailed in the captain's logs. After being hunted to near extinction by nightmarish beings referred to as vessels, they fled their homeworld in search of a distant paradise planet. The mythical promised land Peridaya that would reveal itself only to the chosen ones. Judging by the state of their ship, however, their attackers caught up with them. Shall we extract the ship's navigational drive and decrypt its destination? Paradise planet, you say? Alright. There's actually a couple of things that I've been meaning to do with this. Oh, we're jumping up the rankings. Alright, so I need to investigate the Lambda aliens at some point. Also change the phase shift freeze, and oh god, there's so much to do. Okay, let's put this to the top of the queue. Okay, Rhizome Capital. well, the capital of Rhizome Capital. I kind of have a little bit of everything that I want already. Research labs would make sense. I'm not entirely convinced that I need the luxury residences yet. Holo theaters would make sense for the Unity and... well, I mean, Unity and amenities is not bad. I did have an energy grid here at one point. And I don't see a lot of a reason for me to put the civilian industries down. So I either need to do a research lab or I need to do a holo theater. And honestly, I could probably use the extra jobs. So, holo theater it is. Out of curiosity, are we going to start running out of space for the... nope, the drones will be happy. Alright, I'm also a little curious here about the galactic market. So I don't know if I don't know. Yeah. Wait a minute. Base marketplace competitiveness rating weak. Modifier removed. Prior investments will not be refunded. Oh, damn it. Okay, I need to find some sources of influence and fast. An art piece. What will it give me? Cool, but no deal. Festival? I mean, we might as well do it because we're drowning in cash. Who else has low migration? Yeah, another one of those, please. Art for everyone. Art for art's sake. Sorry, I realize this is kind of irritating to watch in silent, or to have me do this in silence. Basically, I just have a big surplus of money, so I wanted to take advantage of that and boost up my my population counts. Now, as far as the influence is concerned, I think joining the Federation will give me a boost with the Xeno Equality lobby, but it doesn't seem to have been enough to get over my... I mean, obviously I'm in a bunch of packs and such. Anyway, sorry, let me catch up. So, Captain Shield, what have you missed in Stellaris other than the passing of Ebenezer? Haven't been able to catch Stellaris team. Well, as it happens, last week we wound up doing Elder Scrolls for a very foolish reason, which was just I scheduled the stream. I scheduled the vodcast on the wrong day, and you can't actually reverse that decision, it turns out. Lazy Bear says, does trading communications still give you influence when you find someone? Great question. I actually think I'm not able... I believe everybody already knows... Ooh. I will offer association status for sure. So I believe... Communications... Is this the thing we're talking about? I feel like there's something else. Anyways, simple answer would be I believe everybody who I'm in communications range with can already talk with each other. Okay. I'm also debating a little bit about where to put my next few buildings. So normally Gaul would be a good candidate to put a starbase, but let's think a little bit about what starbases give me. We've got so Equity Station's a great example of this. I can build shipyards, trading hubs, hangar bays, whatnot. The one thing that doesn't really count anymore is the off-world trading company that would give you... Oh, I'm still paused. I'm an idiot. The Propitious Concord has voted to offer the Baranthe Star Realm Association status within the Federation. We're glad to have this opportunity to work with the Propitious Concord. Excellent news. So essentially, what I want to be looking at... Actually, so this is that sweet Gaia world. I think there's a pretty good argument for me to put a starbase here, because it's in a good defensive position. Unfortunately, trading-wise, I've seen better. And this is going to be ripe for plunder. The big argument for putting a starbase here, of course, is defensive. Well, okay, let me think about this. So if I put 2 hangar bays down, then we'll be covered for 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, wait a minute, but Python should have a reach of 3. So they do 1, 2, 3, so 1, 2, 3. So I could set up maybe a gun battery and a... Yeah. I can see this working, so this is going to be 1. And then there's also an excuse there. If I build a base here, then I might want to expand out to collect any trade in these areas, but as it turns out, there's no trade there, so... that's 1 base. I think I'm still going to leave one of these in the corner. Now, unfortunately, this isn't going to help me too much with my anchorages. But I can always worry about that later on. I think I'm just going to let this run by.
Research actualized.
The progress we make calls for a new, nimbler form of administration that may aid rather than hinder us in our pursuits. Okay. Starbase capacity is cool. We should probably do soil remediation first, just so we can get some more tiles taken care of. I also need to sort of stop building so many expansions. So, cracking the encoding algorithms of the Vectar Zavonia's navigational drive was no small feat, but thanks to head researcher Basil Maple, who seems to have developed an unusual obsession with finding the Mardak Gval's utopian world, we have finally succeeded. More worryingly, the discovery has somehow leaked to the public, who now share Basil Maple's fixation with settling a paradise planet. Nothing can keep us out of paradise. Basil Maple now has the maniacal trait and begins the Vectar Zavonia event chain. Of course we'll go for mad science.
Outlier identified.
Let's just take a quick moment here. We'll track that. I think I'm willing to give up the 4 months. And again, I'd love to isolate this planet. However, there's less of an argument for me to do this right now because it will take me influence to colonize that. One last thing I should probably take a quick look at as well are my construction ships. Okay. I'm going to stop any expansion along these lines, and yeah, we're okay. Well, I can actually get myself a little bit of... can get myself a little extra influence just by canceling the 52. So I should be able to get at least the one investment in before that. I don't know how long this thing lasts, by the way.
Upscaling complete.
But it shouldn't take us too long to get the 300 influence. Everything else is a bit of a roll of the dice, though.
Upscaling complete.
I'm really tempted to just build something on Havlam, but...
Upscaling complete.
Although Dorelian would obviously make more sense. Well, I'll sit on it for now. But maybe Dorelian will be like a defensive structure and I can put a couple of extra anchorages in it or something like that. And there's certainly no shortage of things for my construction ships to do. I can finally get that social research on Yamal. And then we'll turn around and build as many research stations and mining stations here
Upscaling
as we
complete.
can. Okay, so we made our long journey. Oh, that's right. We've got one of these now. Oh, hang on. I'm the head of the Federation now? I thought there was like a Federation menu. Sorry, I've only ever been in like one Federation, so I can't remember quite how... I guess it's individual diplomacy with your Federation members. Hello, Ragnastomi. Good to see you again. How are you doing? I mean, I don't really have a whole lot that I want to... Not really a whole lot that I want to have happen anyway. Anyway, oh, this is cool. I'm not quite sure what the economic power means, but... And they're associates. I actually want the big guys to be more than associates. Alright, so they won't like it. War philosophy allows wars of aggression. Now, I could... So, there's a bit of a balancing act that I need to do inside of these things. What I could do is I could change my laws so that I can't do wars of aggression. And that would get this very powerful entity inside the Federation. That would be great for me. But it potentially alienates my my closer ally, and more importantly, it would potentially prevent me from being able to take advantage of weakness from these guys. So the way I think I'm going to play this right now is I'm going to leave it be. Once I sort of hit my limits of expansion, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around and I'll consider adopting a more peaceful stance. And if that means I lose these guys, so be it. Because of course, then I wind up with these awesome allies. But again, we'll see how this all goes. I'm also a little bit worried about the costs for my navy, but we can get through. And Domi says, a little tired, just came back from a trip. How are you? You hope work has been nice. It's actually kind of gone back to its old ways, unfortunately, but I'm doing my best to manage with it. One of the things that has particularly irritated me is that there is at least one person at work who is now aware that one of the things that I do is spend, up to 3 or 4 hours doing a broadcast, and there's this very clear feeling that they don't really hide that, it's always kind of the size, like, or you do other things, and it's like, okay, yeah, I know that I do gaming online, in my spare time. I think the thing that's really bothered me about that is that it kind of carries with it this assumption that somehow how I spend my leisure time is, somehow lesser than how others might. And I quite simply reject the premise. There is something, in my opinion, that's very different from playing a game in private. I'll be honest with you, unless it was a Paradox game like this, I don't think I could play a game for more than 3 or 4 hours in one sitting. And it's like, if it was model trains or if it was hiking or whatever, there wouldn't even be a question about it. But there's just sort of this veneer of disrespectability that comes with gaming. And unfortunately, it sort of translated into this, this kind of condescension when I talk with people. And my view on this is that, I have absolutely nothing to explain or to justify to you. One of the reasons why I stop the stream when I do is to make sure I get enough sleep for the day ahead. I talk about econ stuff on this stream pretty frequently, although I'm obviously not being paid to talk about econ stuff when it comes down to it. As far as I'm concerned, my obligation to my employer has been taken care of, and most people are cool about that. But there is this, there's sort of this subtle underpinning of the way that I'm being talked to from some people, and I pretty severely resent it. So. Spending time playing soccer with some friends. Okay, broadcast video games. Poor him. What a nerd. Yeah. Well, I mean, for God's sake, it's an economics department. They're all nerds there. So, the entities encountered by our fleet some time ago are new wondrous forms of spaceborne life, quickly named Space Amoeba, following the analyst's gross misreading of the initial sensor output. This creature is in fact larger than the average corporate Corvette. We should leave it be and remotely monitor the creature and its kin from Rhizome Capital. So we can say fascinating creatures, or we can learn to coexist.
Situation log revised.
And we can do 12 months. I think it's worth it just to see if we can get peaceful relations. But yeah,
upscaling complete.
I mean, there's other issues that I have with that individual anyway. There's just something, I think most of you have probably encountered someone like this in a workplace before. It doesn't really matter.
Potential market survey completed.
Oh, here we go. Life signs have been detected coming from inside the atmosphere of this gas giant. Could it indicate the presence of some kind of biosphere? So one of the reasons why I'm holding off on analyzing the veil is because I don't want to use the influence to expand out to that yet. So what I'm trying to do instead is just find some other uses for my ships. At this point, though, I think probably I'm just going to hang out. We'll go to Zudra because I have a feeling we'll be able to mine the moats before too long. So, to give you an example, in terms of a personality thing, so there's lots of things that I will think about in terms of how things can be improved where I work. And that's just kind of I've been building... Okay, I am committed to that one. Fair enough. Every place I've worked, and this is film, this is anything, I have always put some time into thinking about how things can be done better. That's just one of the... It's just kind of a person... essentially, like, I just think it is just the way that I'm kind of wired to think. And it's like there's a difference between like sitting down and saying to somebody, hey asshole, you're doing this wrong, and I'm kind of tempted to put this on Akram. Or Gall. Sorry, just need a minute to think. Okay, so if it's Gall, I'm covered for farmers for a while. And I also get the bonus to the population, which makes a lot more sense, so Gall it is. Now, I also think it's very important that when making suggestions that I think carefully about basically, you know, what am I doing, what am I recommending? And in basically what this means is that if I, like, very rarely am I going to just sit down and say, oh, you know, pass the bong, man. Wouldn't it be awesome if we used, you know, R instead of SAS or something like that? Like, that's not the kind of thinking I do at work. I usually sit through and I say, what's something I think, like, so usually it tends to be along the lines of like, where am I spending the largest amount of time? In this case, we'll boost the nomination bid. Now, the drawback here, of course, is that it's pretty unlikely that I'm going to get another 300 influence, but that doesn't mean that we won't. That doesn't mean that we won't try. So what have we got here? Adequate competitiveness, and I don't think it tells us what the competition's up to. We'll move on. But yeah, so like basically when I come up with a recommendation, it is carefully thought through, and it's very rarely going to be, my job would be easier if ... It would be, I think this is a better way of doing X for, you know, reason X, Y, or Z. Now the person that I'm talking about here, with that like massive, you know, throat clearing out of the way, the reason I mention all of this is that the person who I have to interact with doesn't think of it that way. I know for a fact that they reflexively, I don't know if dismiss is the right word or just undermine, but generally, like, they don't really consider suggestions that are not their own. And I cannot tell you how many times I have recommended something in this context, only to kind of have them dismiss it, and then they'll, like, I kind of know how to, I know how to turn it around and sort of be, wait a minute, you said this? It's like, what? So like a good example would be, it's like, oh, well, the updated version of the program does this. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that there was a version of the program I hadn't been told about. Like, clearly, you know, I am positioning with that kind of a statement. And then sure enough, they'll turn around and, oh, okay, well, it turns out this isn't the most recent version of the program, you know, it was different. And I'm like, I sort of understand if somebody's in a position of authority that they don't, you know, they want to sort of command the respect of others, but the way you are guaranteed to remove that is when people feel like you don't have their back. If somebody sort of feels like, so, you know, this is a great example here. If I feel like my recreational activities are being undervalued, and it somehow, somehow this is translating to me not being a good worker by virtue of the fact that I do this thing in my spare time. I don't really feel that supported in that environment. And then if I feel like every suggestion that I make is going to be met with an explanation in terms of why it doesn't work, and then, later they're turning around and, oh, actually it does work, I'm just going to be a lot less inclined to make those kinds of suggestions. So, all of that to say, that's kind of the context that I'm in, and the director knows about it. The director, and I had a fairly frank discussion about the fact that I was unhappy in my position, and I don't think he knew that I had 4 job offers lined up within a week of me looking for them. And I have not we left it at, no promises one way or the other. Let's see if we can work this out, but I think you will work well in the new system. So I am at least inclined to stay in my own department. But obviously I was really unhappy not too long ago. And if it kind of feels like in some ways we're reverting back to those conditions that made me feel unhappy. And so, what exactly do I owe these guys? If I don't feel like my work is appreciated, I can go elsewhere. And it's obviously a better fit. But I am also trying to be conscious of the fact that the director sort of has their hands tied, and it's not an ideal situation for anyone. So anyways, Isaacson says, what could be improved about the place you work? They could give you a raise and treat you nicely for all the hard work that you do. Well, yes, but... he's a little drunk, so he didn't intend to laugh out loud. Oh, sorry, we had some other debates. So anyone speaks to me when they ask what you've been up to, your only response is gaming, just the blank, oh. Yeah, well, it's tough. I'm not gonna lie. I know I've been monologuing a lot tonight, but I actually do think there's a reasonable statement to be made that there is a type of gamer that spends too much time on the hobby. I am inclined to think I probably spend more than I should playing games, and that's because just my outside options are so much better. I'd love to learn more about economics, and I would love to study more about programming. I'd really like to actually sit down and properly learn C# rather than just kind of hack together what I need ad hoc. There's lots of other things that I can do, but it's very hard to say, especially on like a Stellaris stream or something like that, it's hard to say that my brain is kind of being passive here. Like admittedly, some of this is, or actually a lot of this has been discussing things that are not directly related to the game. But you've clearly seen, like, here's what the strategy is going to be, here's how I'm planning this, here's how I'm sort of planning on for the future. And this is the way that I tend to think about things in any workplace that I've been in. I am attracted to games like Stellaris because they appeal to the way that I think, and the way that I think that has made me a good worker for the places that I've been. The causal chain doesn't necessarily go the direction that people think that they do. But I'll also be honest with you too. Like, everybody sort of knows the type of person who doesn't have anything but gaming. And I don't think that's right. I think that people who game do have more to offer the world and owe it to themselves to make some effort to improve themselves and to find that balance. It's not my place to tell them exactly how many minutes they should spend, but like, for example, I'm really happy that the iPhone added time tracking. I've actually spent less time on my phone after they added that, because I like my phone, but I don't want to spend every waking minute on it. So it's tough. Like, I am sympathetic to the fact that there's a perception that gaming is a waste of time, and as with anything, excess alcohol consumption, or in fact any alcohol consumption is bad for you, but excess alcohol consumption, goes from being a thing that's acceptable socially to something that is a major health risk, among other risks. And the same can be said for gaming as well. But the biggest thing too is that I think a lot of people need to realize that, like, gaming is not just for nerds anymore. Everybody has a smartphone. Everybody has a game on their smartphone that they've played. It's not like I'm sitting down and playing Candy Crush for 4 hours. And again, if people don't get it, it's not their job to. But I'm definitely not going to entertain any kind of illusion that somehow other people's pastimes are more respectable than my own. That's just a non-starter. All right, we've discovered a thriving ecosystem in the upper atmosphere of the gas giant Themin 10. Massive floating creatures having evolved bodies filled with lighter-than-air gases follow the wind currents and feed off the energy released by the gas giant's frequent lightning storms. These beings, in turn, support colonies of smaller animals that prey on atmospheric plankton and each other. More social research, but pretty unlikely I'm going to make my way out there, to be honest. That person is currently my manager. Used to be colleague, but with the current changes, they're my boss. And I mean, I will be honest too. So when I was talking with my director, I was also pretty clear with my director that I felt that individual was the sort of the subject of maybe some unfair criticism. Because the challenge is that if a director...
Upscaling complete.
So if a director says, you know, this is the way things are going to be, and you don't like it, where are you going to go? Like, you know, there's not a lot of options available to you at that point. Yes, I'm going to have to deal with the piracy in...
Upscaling complete.
Oh, that's going to be ugly. So that's covered. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4... I think maybe... I think I'm going to have to build 2 hangar bays. But yeah, so...
The system has been surveyed.
I did want to be really clear with the director that I thought that it was unfair that they were sort of sometimes this target of resentment for sort of the way things were being run. Or, well, I'll put it to you this way, like, you know, if your issue is with the director, you're screwed because they're the director. But it is like everybody kind of has some story of, you know, a beef with their boss or something like that. Like, that's kind of a normal thing to have. So I wanted to be as clear as I could that I was sympathetic to the position, but I was also not going to, like, and so I wanted, like,
Colonial Enterprise upsizing.
The biggest thing is that I wanted to be really clear on where I thought there was unfair criticism being made, and that I felt that there was room for, you know, I felt that there was maybe some room for where things could maybe be like, I don't know, where's there's some common ground, maybe is a better way to put it.
Upscaling complete.
But again, that's a really hard thing for me to say when, you know, again, I just deal with stuff like certain judgments in terms of how I'm spending my leisure time and whatnot. Like, I think there's a certain side, like, I guess the biggest thing that I'd say is, like, the heart of most of my complaints comes down to, I don't understand what the benefit is to, you know, making a judgment on, you know, on what my
Special project
my pastimes
actualized.
are, or something like that. That just kind of feels like something that winds up being, it winds up making me feel not great. And then, like, the stuff, like, when I come up with a suggestion about how things can be better done, like, it's not that I'm turning around and saying, it's like, hey, dummy, you know, you're not running this well because here's room for improvement. It's like, hey, I had this idea. We spend, you know, 2 days doing this. I can write a program that automates most of this, and we can get it done in half a day. And that will allow us to have the same number of, either the same number of people do more, or we can assign fewer people to this task that people don't really like doing, and we can, instead get them to do more analytical projects or something like that. And obviously I include myself in that, but not exclusively so. But again, it's not a relationship that's working out particularly well. I'm doing my best to manage it, but it's definitely one that I think it just as is evident by the amount that I'm talking about this, it's very evident that it is creeping into my, my off work time, and I don't think that's good. Like, I don't think whenever you're in a situation where you're thinking about work, off work, and it's particularly in a, oh God, this thing happened and I still feel really bad about it, that is definitely a time that you need to be reflecting on the environment that you're in. And I know some people who are currently doing job searches right now. I don't mean to sound so smug that I have, other offers, but I am lucky enough that is those are my circumstances right now, and as a consequence, I'm able to respond to the circumstances I find myself in by finding people who maybe value the work that I do in a more overt way. No, different person, Eyes of Sin. I don't like. I really don't like speaking ill of other people. So I don't want to spend too much time talking about the individual. It's more so sort of a lesson that I've got. Okay, so I'll read this item and I'll maybe try and ground this a little bit more. The space amoebas, the nickname now lovingly popularized in Rhizome Capital, are solitary animals. When left to their own devices, all but the youngest specimens are accompanied by quasi-independent organisms dubbed flagella, seemingly spawned by the amoeba and programmed through liquid RNA-laced secretions to do the bidding of the host. Initially assumed to be young space amoebas, the flagella do not seem to factor into any reproductive mechanics, each individual flagellum instead appearing solely as a disconnected limb for its host amoeba. These flagella are capable of manipulating and even attacking objects in an impressive yet restricted range around the host, periodically returning to lodge inside the host amoeba's body for reprogramming. There are potential military applications to be found in the regenerative properties of the amoeba's thick hide or in the flagella's graceful patterns of movement. So the flagella are fascinating, will give me evasion, and retrieve some tissue samples will give me a bonus to regenerative hull tissue. Both are really cool, and I sort of feel like regenerative hull tissue would be better because it'll keep my ships alive on long journeys, but I do really like evasion, so... So yeah, the reason why I sort of talk about these things that the manager does and the way that they make... So one, there's always a bonus to kvetching. There's even management studies about how this can work. Active scans on Mindara 2 have picked up what appears to be a large ship deep inside the atmosphere of the gas giant. Judging by the nearby debris, there have been several failed attempts to salvage this derelict in the past. Any ship strong enough to withstand such crushing gravity must be a magnificent prize. And Science Officer Rowan Garland has proposed a salvage project of our own. Bring it up, whatever it is.
Situation log revised.
I think we can sometimes lose the... ship doing this, but... yeah, so one of the reasons why I talk about this, and one of the reasons why I...
Research actualized.
One of the reasons why I sort of go on like this is it's an opportunity for me... So, when I worked in camera, I was responsible for running a couple of departments. It can be Ragnastomi, so essentially the trade-off that you're facing on this one is here. Sorry for interrupting the the flow of thought. So the trade-off is this, is that if your ship can... So regenerative hull tissue is for those cases where you feel like the ship can survive the encounter and you are going to be out in space without any means of repairing your ship. Essentially what it'll do is it'll let you kind of go further out into the galaxy without any kinds of supply. And then what evasion does is it's damage mitigation. So in this case, this is more about you staying in the fight longer, being able to take out the enemy, and to minimize the damage that you get. So the reason why I sort of edge towards... Ooh, it's really snowing out there. The reason why I chose evasion in that particular case is that the most likely situations in which I'm going to be fighting... So let's just be honest here. Like, if the Great Khan appears here, I don't have an answer to it. And more importantly, I will be within my own systems where my ships can sort of heal on their own. Now, the alternative would be that I do sort of an invasion of these regions. And because these are already star bases, as long as I can take specifically Spica, I could repair here. It's like, okay, well, where are the next places that I go? Well, probably I would want to sort of hop to take this place as well. And as long as I'm sort of able to maintain these little hops, I should be able to sort of double back and repair my ships that way. So it's mostly just because I kind of knew the structure of the place I'd be most likely to invade, that I felt I was okay managing that particular bonus. So it's as with the Paradox games are at their best where there isn't an obvious option to go with, and it's more a context-based thing. Although, maybe regenerative hull tissue would have been better. I'm not quite sure. So before I do the incoming transmission, I did want to close off this one thing, especially because, again, obviously I spoke rather poorly about another individual. The reason for saying this stuff is less about dumping on another person. I have to assume that if I am experiencing this under a manager, and specifically in a situation where they have changed the structure of the department, that this person may not necessarily be happy in their own position either. Now, this doesn't mean that I think some of the things that have been said to me are acceptable. This doesn't mean that I am indifferent to the way that I'm being treated. I just think that it is very easy to lose track or lose sight of how the other person might be feeling or what might be driving them in that particular case. For instance, if, I tend to ask myself the question, if this idea that I had is so carefully thought through and so good, why would anyone turn it down? Now, one, it's maybe because they haven't heard how carefully thought through it is. I know that happens a lot. But the other possibility is that there might be a certain degree of insecurity, that if somebody has, been wanting some kind of a promotion, wants to manage people, and they're now in that position, it may be that a lack of maturity in terms of where they're at might lead them to sort of assume that leadership is about having all the good ideas, and that if a subordinate gives you an idea, then that's a failing on you, that they're supposed to do what they're told. Now, I mean, again, in terms of film, I was a little bit lucky because the conditions are usually so frantic that you don't get the luxury of sort of trying to protect your little niche. It's just more, get stuff done. And so I was a little bit lucky in the fact that I never had the opportunity to do that. But I can definitely appreciate that type of mentality. If you want to prove yourself, you want to take ownership of good ideas, and potentially other ideas can seem like a threat to that. Again, that doesn't mean that I don't feel, it's bad that I, as a subordinate, feel that my ideas aren't valued and that my work isn't valued. That's a problem, and that needs to be dealt with. But it's very different from considering this person as just some ogre from the outside who is just put on this world to make me miserable. So, I don't want to be unsympathetic to them. I think it is quite possible that this is somebody who's found themselves in a circumstance that maybe they weren't well prepared for. And there is something very sad about that, right? Because if somebody wants an opportunity to advance or wants an opportunity to run things or to manage things, imagine you had that opportunity. If you're working now or if you're aspiring to work, you finally get the opportunity and it's not turning out. Things aren't going well. And, even if you don't like someone, very few people are that dumb that they're totally indifferent to things not working out well. And there's something a little tragic about that. And again, it's not to say I am perfectly capable of being frustrated and upset and to feel bad things about another person. But I think this is why I'm very reluctant to, speak poorly of others. And when I do, I want it to be in sort of a spirit of trying to identify where the problems are. And, in that particular case, I just think, yeah, okay, I can complain. Who doesn't have a boss that kind of annoys them or whatever? That's not new. But it is also like, it should be, I hope, one day opportunity to, Sorry, I had some audio problems here. Looks like the game audio's down though, so I might, I might actually need to reset the stream for that. That sucks. I'm gonna see if I can find a way around this. I might just go quiet for the remaining 15 minutes or something like that, because I don't know. Obviously, I spend a lot more time talking about the work stuff. I didn't really want to leave it at a negative. The biggest thing is there'll probably be a day where I'm running stuff, at least to a small degree. And it is much more important for me to learn lessons like that than to, just reduce it down to something like, oh, this person's a jerk and they're always going to be a jerk. They were born a jerk. And that's just the way the world works. That sucks. I actually have to turn off the stream if I want to get the audio back. So tell you what, let's put the pin in this episode. I'm sorry. If you want, I will give you a YouTube link to the Stellaris music so you can at least enjoy that. This is the first link I could find that does that. Yeah, unfortunately, I basically smashed my knee into the headphone jack, and it went out just far enough that it hurt the stream. So it's not a great feature of OBS that if the audio gets pulled out, it defaults to silence. But yeah, this is the biggest thing I want to take away from this is that I don't really benefit from just seeing this person as a force of evil to make me feel bad. And so, if I identify a problem, I want to identify it in the spirit of making things better rather than just saying this is a bad person who thinks bad things about me. This might even be true. It's just not helpful for me to assume that. So... Oh, my knee's fine. Yeah, it's just, I'm actually more irritated about the stream thing. Anyways, greetings from the Vengrilin Tirum, certified caravaneer traders from the Caravanserai Caravan Coalition. We teach Xenos how to earn a substantial additional income working from home, but you seem to be doing well for yourself already. We'll offer you an exclusive deal whenever we pass through your territory. Tempting as it may be, you don't have to accept right away. You can ask us to contact you again before we depart your space, and we will. But be aware that incoming calls will be rerouted to the Caravanserai Caravan Coalition. Greetings, Caravaneers. Do you happen to know of any intelligent sapiens that could use an additional stream of energy credits? Show us your wares. We offer you a Tyrium brand atmospheric deodorizer. Do your agri-world smell like fertilizer? Is your ecumenopolis make you more yuck, ew, no, please. Does your colony stink? Apparently it is... What were the terms again? Also, hello, Melemony. Sorry for the radio silence there. Let me find this thing. I want to find the exact wording. It is false and defamatory to say that the Ecumenopolis stinks. We have the solution. Our patented blend of microbes and aerosol reagents will clear the air of any habitable troposphere. Just sit back, relax, deploy the stratodrones, and enjoy a breath of fresh air. All this for the low, low price of one science ship, excluding the crew. We don't need them, no. A one-time delivery to a single colony only. Anti-odor effects are guaranteed to last up to 80 years and no longer. Increases immigration pull by 30%. Pop growth from immigration by 10% for the duration. Trium Atmospheric Deodorizer brand name and "You think that's air you're breathing now" slogan. Copyright 2200 Vengrillion Tyrium. All rights reserved. Not now. Can you get back to us later? Okay, apparently no dialogue for that. All that I want to do here is make sure that I build a science ship in prep. Got more research station output, so I think we're going to cool it for that. It's tempting to go for the mining drone laser, but in this case, improved deflectors are cheaper, so we'll run there. I'll leave this be. And I'm a little tempted to, so originally I was going to, wipe these out, but it might be a little tempting to just make that the start of the stream next time, seeing as I won't have the music. The Grand Fleet is actually playing in the headphones right now, so it makes me feel really bad that you all can't enjoy that wonderful song. So what I think I'll do here, let's talk a little bit about what our next few steps are going to be in terms of our plans for galaxy domination. So I blew it a little bit. I did not realize that you had multiple decisions as part of the nomination bid. So reduced administrative overhead, special economic zones, bribes. So we've used this once. We've got an adequate rating for this, but obviously I want to try and get to that point where I can get I can make it more. The energy credits won't be a problem. The influence is a really big deal. Essentially, what I'm really banking on here is that the Artist Enclave will give me opportunities to get more influence from them. It's fairly unlikely that we'll be able to pull that off. Some other goals that I have. Well, one, we've already colonized the Gaia world. So essentially what's going to be happening right now, you'll notice that my rivals have already started positioning themselves in this sector. An ideal solution for me would probably be to take Eunuch from them, but I'm not going to be too militant about it. I'm okay leaving things to Dorillion. And essentially what I kind of want to do here is I'd like to use this ship just to see as many possibilities, see if there's some resources inside here that I want, and then at my own pace, we'll sort of fill in all of these territories. And a similar story here. We'll fill in Vood and Kesso, Euless, Zorf, and so on and so forth. At some point, too, we'll also be sure to get the... so in this case, this is the Veil. So this is a Gaia world as well. Medium term, I do want to readdress the naval capacity. Obviously, I've got a nice big bonus to to all of my resources except consumer goods. Obviously, I'm going to need to think about that a little bit. But I'm not too worried about being able to sort of maintain the empire in its current state. So essentially what we're going to be doing, we're going to be putting a hold on expansion for the next little while I deal with our bid to get the interstellar market. During that time, we'll have a little bit of infrastructure that we can build up. The 5 Society on Yamal will be nice, and obviously we'll get whatever we can out of the one sort of offshoot colony. Our next, once we're no longer sort of putting a cap on the amount of influence that we can get, once we're no longer hoarding influence, I will colonize the Gaia world. By then, we should probably have a science ship that's been able to get rid of the shrouded penalty. And for the meantime, the question here, we've got one defensive structure here. We'll put a defensive structure somewhere here. Dorelian is probably the most likely candidate. Hey, Shortugan, we're actually just finishing up for the... Yes, I know we don't have... Oh, sorry, you were talking to Domi about that. So Domi, I accidentally need my headphone jack, and unfortunately with the version of OBS that I'm using, if the audio disconnects, it reverts to default audio, which is no audio, which means that you get to hear my voice, but you don't get to hear the game audio. So I'm just kind of giving the preview of what will be happening next week, and we'll be wrapping up. So... I feel bad, Shartugan, because I feel like it's been a while since I've had a chance to see you, and I'm leaving you in the cold. Actually, I see there's quite a few of you who are coming in, so I apologize for the state of the cast. I will be back with Stellaris next week. Although Cultist Simulator on Wednesday and Mass Effect on Friday. I hope you guys like Mass Effect. It felt good to get back to that game. But yeah, so in terms of immediate term plans, construction ships dealing with sort of internal expansion that I can do, anything that doesn't cost influence. Once I get the 300 influence or the race is over, Rhizome Capital will either stand as the home of the the galactic market, or it won't, and I will have wasted a whole bunch of influence. Is probably the bigger issue for me rather than energy credits. I'm obviously making tons of it. I'm not going to build a defensive structure here. So I basically get one with my current cap. So this is probably the most likely candidate because it's a natural choke point, but we want to see what opportunities exist within this space here. And then once, of course, I get my restriction on expansion lifted, our main candidates are going to be this system here. I'll fill in the gaps here. These are going to be colonized, but these are sort of lower priority ones because they'll have higher expenses. Obviously, though, a 24 size planet is not something to ignore. And then the real question is going to be trying to find some natural ending in this area. That's one of the reasons why this fleet is going to take out these amoeba. The main reason for this is I want to sort of see what I'm giving up here. I'm actually quite comfortable leaving the boundaries for Rhizome Capital at Oreb at the moment, but I want that to be a conscious decision based on what I know is available to me, especially because if I can build another defensive structure in Oreb, what that means is that maybe I don't need to have so many hangar bays. Maybe I just build one hangar bay, one trading hub, and then I convert this into something like, let's say, I don't know, anchorages, so I can deal with this cap here. Oreb, similar idea. I want to make sure that I have a hangar base so that I'm able to take advantage, or that I'm able to defend some trade, probably one trading hub so that we can take advantage. Oh, actually, that's Terramagor, so I'm going to need more there. But again, something sort of focused on preventing invasions. And then in terms of, further on down the road, the main focus is going to be trying to get over this empire sprawl. Obviously, 63% penalty to tradition adoption, almost 40% to technology costs. There's only so many things I can do to try and improve my technological standing. Although, as a closing point, let's just see where we're at for victory. So, I mean, we are now, out of everybody that we know, where we've got the highest score, and by a pretty decent little margin. Let's take a look at where we're at for tech level. So that's 391. Okay, so obviously the Benathi Star Realm is I'm pretty sure these guys were an advanced start. I actually have a feeling that pacifist empires are a lot more fun to play. You guys are very kind to me. Sorry about that. I just wanted to try and wrap up the ideas inside the inside the game. But yeah, so I'm not 100% sure how I'll deal with the Empire Sprawl. Obviously, the Sword of Damocles is the fact that we're right beside Marauders who could turn into the Great Khan, and I really don't have a navy that's equipped to deal with it. And I've actually created an even bigger problem for myself by virtue of the fact that the way I would deal with the Great Khan is to get enough technology to make me strong enough to fight them, and I am developing that technology at a much slower rate than I could because of my expansion plans. So one of the ways that I'm going to be expanding out is only if I see substantial technological advantages. Obviously, I'm getting percent bonuses for research stations, so this is a great kind of a system for me to pick up, but it's very hard for me to justify something like Unix or Mandara, especially because I'm just so far over. Like what it should be 70, and I'm currently at 155. And clearly I'm going to be, I'm going to be getting at least one more planet inside here. So that number's only going to be going up over time. But I mean, this is what makes this fun, right? We get to learn the new mechanics and see how it goes. I might even just, build a new species and try pacifist or try a big like evil empire for another game. But anyways, guys, I'm really sorry about the audio for the game. I hope that wasn't too dull to just hear me talk about the game like this. Shortugan, I hope I get a chance to see you again. It has been too long. I really appreciate you stopping by, and I'm sorry to leave you this way. Same to you, Melemony. I feel like I can't remember if I saw you at the beginning of the stream or if you just snuck in while I was monologuing. I do apologize for taking the time to talk about some of the personal stuff. I know, some streams just lend themselves to that, especially when the chat's a little bit smaller. So I hope it wasn't completely out of left field, or that you got enough of the ongoing story of Rhizome Capital. I'm really enjoying this patch. I'm pretty easy to please, but I'm having a really great time with this. Even the slower time that we're spending on the pace is actually specifically because I feel there's enough for me to do to keep me entertained. And I think that's a great feature about the game. It means that later game stuff I don't get to appreciate as much, but I'm definitely having a great time with it. Ragnus Domi likes pacifist empires as well. And yes, I apologize. It is Mass Effect 2 that I am playing. And what else? So you really like to play with hive mind empires as well. You can be a pacifist hive mind, but it doesn't quite work with the whole eating people thing, I think. And yeah, I'll see you all for Cultist Simulator on Wednesday. Hopefully we'll get an Ascension before the new patch comes out, but I am running out of time. And on Friday we'll be back to Mass Effect. One of the things that one of the reasons why I was a little eager to finish off specifically at this time is I want to try and record the next Elder Scrolls episode. So I need to make sure that I can do that and still get a reasonable bedtime in. But let's find somebody to host. You know what? I'm going to host Ponce. I think he just finished Subnautica. He's currently playing Monster Hunter World. Ponce is a very relaxed streamer. Really great guy from Vancouver. I used to know him for League of Legends, even though I didn't play it myself. But he's somebody I always feel safe leaving you in the hands of. And what else was I going to say? I have no idea. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out. I'm sorry, by the way, Lady Dow, about the following thing. I do genuinely feel bad about that. So maybe one last thing to say as well. If you feel like I should be following you, if you want me to follow you, if I'm not following you, that is probably not that is probably not an intentional thing. So if you think that there is a gap for that, let me know, and I will address it. Because as we learned today with Lady Dow, I was speaking highly of her streams, and then completely found out that I was not following her on Twitter or on Twitch. So I don't know. It's totally fine. It is actually a decent time for me to bring that up, because I actually want to see more people. I want to interact more. So, anyways, see you all on Cultist Simulator on Wednesday, and see you all for Mass Effect on Friday. Have a good one.